Welcome to the May 15th, 2023 regular business board meeting of the Lower Merion Board of School Directors. The board believes it is in its best interest and the best interest of the students of the district to hear comments from district residents. An opportunity will be given later in the meeting for public comment both in person and through the chat feature, which will be read by the solicitor. This meeting is being live streamed and video recorded with sound for public broadcast. All participants joining via the webinar will need to use the chat feature, which will be enabled during audience recognition. So thank you and welcome to everyone. We have a special presentation to start off our meeting, and I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Schaefer.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we are given the opportunity to celebrate some very special guests here this evening and some that weren't able to join us, but certainly in this limited acting capacity role that I've been given, this is a highlight for me, and just to share how much I appreciate and the district appreciates all of the time and effort and energy that you pour into your work every day for the past 25 years is quite remarkable. Certainly, I'm hoping that someday I'll be at the 25 mark. I think that, while we would like to be able to celebrate work every day of every school year, it's nice to be able to take a moment to, at this venue, to really celebrate your efforts. And certainly, we're here to present tonight a certificate and a token of our appreciation, but doesn't really reflect our gratitude for your longstanding service to the students of Lower Merion School District, the larger community, and to public education generally. So I thank you for being here this evening, and congratulations on reaching this very important milestone. And I would first, before we get into introductions for those that are here tonight, recognize those who were unable to join us this evening. John DeVernois from Harriton High School. Okay. Vanessa Hahn from Gladwin Elementary School, Wendy Young from Marion Elementary School, and Christopher Esabel from Belmont Hills Elementary School. So congratulations to them, even though they're not here with us this evening. And to begin our introductions of those who are here, I'd like to turn the mic over to Lower Merion High School Principal, Dr. Michael Johnson. That's the way it was written.
Okay, good evening. So what an honor and a pleasure it is to recognize the following colleagues as we celebrate this evening and thank them for their amazing contributions over the years. I'd like to begin with Jennifer Dawson. Peter Dawson. Christina Minetti. Sarah Nimoy. And last but not least, Kevin Reese. Should I call up Sarah? Should I call up Sarah? And now the principal from Black Rock Middle School, Ms. Sarah Stout.
Good evening, everyone. First, I have the opportunity to recognize 5 of my colleagues from Bala Cynwyd Middle School. These are wonderful folks. They were unable to join us tonight. School counselor Stephanie Brett, math teacher William Denning, head of the whole cafeteria, Liz Deskowitz, one of the best head custodians in the district you're going to meet, Mike Isaacman, and art teacher Beverly Rusoff. So all of those folks from Bala Cynwyd Middle School. And I also have the pleasure of recognizing who is here tonight. After 24 years at Bala Cynwyd Middle School, she bravely came with me to Black Rock and is a fabulous art teacher. And we were just talking about how much we love having our 5th graders, so it's my pleasure to recognize Maura Messick.
Good evening, everyone. I'm principal of Welsh Valley Middle School. My name is Chris Hall, and I'm so pleased that we have so many honorees being honored this evening for 25 years of service. Many of the folks were not able to make it. Congratulations, Matthew Birch, Rasheen Campbell, Michelle Donahue, Gina Sullivan, and Michael Lex Sullivan. Please give them a round of applause. I also have the distinct pleasure of congratulating someone else on 25 years of service. When I came on board as principal 10 years ago, Gina Verkler was a teacher leader on staff who I really relied on to onboard me, and she did an amazing job of that, so thank you so much. So much so that her leadership was recognized at the district level, and she was called up to support the district as a coordinator of student services. So Gina's been hanging out with Kimberly Frazier and the student services team, doing great work there, but she's always a dragon at heart. We appreciate you, Gina. Come on up. Gina Berkler. Now I'd like to turn it over to Sean Bernadowitz, principal at Penwyn Elementary School.
Hi, good evening. Tonight I have the pleasure of honoring 2 of our staff members at Penwyn Elementary. Sue McNally, our art teacher who's been there for 25 years, who was unable to join us tonight, has graciously shared her love of art with her students and inspired many of them to pursue art in longer-term projects and even careers as well. So we congratulate Sue on making that milestone of 25 years. I'm also fortunate enough to have our wonderful school nurse, Mrs. Yvette DeVille. I'm going to ask Yvette to come on up. Mrs. DeVoe has been an integral part of Penwyn Elementary. Right from the time parents and guardians meet her, she talks about how she loves her frequent flyers, who she often encourages to go back to class. She is also someone that you want to have next to you or beside you or in front of you in a time of a crisis. I distinctly remember an incident with a 1st grader who had a compound fracture. Mrs. DeVoe calmly turned to me and said, "I think we need an ambulance." So she is somebody who has served the Penwyn community, and she's an integral part of what we do, and we are so thrilled to honor her tonight with this 25 years of service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I introduce Jim Lill from our operations department.
So tonight we have several people from our transportation department. Usually Mr. Aldous Filsons is the voice of transportation. Tonight you get me. We wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the following people for their dedication to the district, and I, along with their colleagues, congratulate them on this honor. Stephen Sharp, Jeannie Eberhardt, Willie Swinson, and Antoine Moore.
Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you in 25 more. Take care.
Thank you.
Yep.
Say hi to Bridget.
Bye, sweetie.
Look how cute she is. Take care. Congratulations. Congratulations. All right, now we can remove them. You guys can please filter out.
Yeah, please feel free to move up in the seats. Okay. Since no one decided to stay with us this evening. So as for the next topic on our agenda, we have just an acknowledgement, an important acknowledgement that our inter-school council regarding mini grants, and that's a program that's been in the district for a while. Our inter-school council supports a number of initiatives of the school district, and including this important one, which is a grant program. And this year, they received 50 grant requests totaling approximately $32,000. The funding came from each of the 11 schools, a parent's donation, and remaining funds from a previous year's award, previous year's awards. The difference between the requested and actual funding made the selection process very competitive, and a total of 31 grants received funding. And these are grants that are applied for by our teachers intending to do new, exciting, innovative programs that support students in ways that allow for teacher creativity, innovation, and student voice. So we're always pleased to accept or acknowledge these awards that the ISC so generously manages and gives out every year. And so that's an acknowledgement of that important work that supports our initiatives at a classroom level and a school level. So thank you for that.
I'll just take a moment. Anyone who knows me knows that I am a huge supporter of the Interschool Council, was at one time very involved and actually chaired the mini grant program. And it's a really great opportunity for teachers and staff members to try new ideas, get funding for things that are sort of unusual. One year we had the Latin teachers that run the Latin clubs at the high school level get buzzers, sort of like Jeopardy buzzers, so that the kids could practice before they went off to across the country, or not really across the country, throughout the Northeast to different colleges to go on competitions to represent our high schools. So just, it's a really great opportunity, and I thank the HSAs and the ISC for continuing to support it.
And next on our agenda, Dr. McGloin will be presenting an update on our full-day kindergarten planning for the 24-25 school year.
Good evening. I'm happy to be back to talk about full-day kindergarten and provide you an update. Since our last meeting, we actually spoke about full-day kindergarten on April 10th, and at that time, we said that we would come back to the board and we would talk about room utilization, where we could place full-day kindergarten in the schools, and then also potential costs for implementing a full-day kindergarten program in the upcoming school year as well as the following school year. So tonight we're going to go through each of the schools and talk about where we believe we'll be able to house full-day kindergarten. And in addition to that, I'll provide you with detailed estimates of the program. So as we've looked at charts before, this is a little truncated over what we looked at before in that it really does give an idea of our regular education kindergarten classrooms. This is specific only to the kindergarten classrooms. It is not including student services. It does not include special areas. But when we look at our projection for student enrollment based on the MCPC report, we use the 24-25 projections. With that in mind, we would be adding 17.8 16.5 FTEs over our current allotment. That is also inclusive of our recommended expansion of the K+ program. And so if we were to add those 3 teachers, if the board were to approve that, then we would be down to a total of 14.5 teachers the following school year. That equates to 16 classrooms in the district, and you can see that it's not all equal. It really depends on the building. We range from 0 classrooms necessary at Belmont Hills potentially to 4 classrooms needed at Gladwin and Penwyn based on these estimates. I've shown you this chart before, but what we did was ask our administrators to go through their facilities and look at every space that's available in the building and do a room utilization chart for us. And so you'll see an example of what that looks like. It's every room that we have. The staff assigned I removed just because we wanted to not really identify who's where, but you could see what their rules are and how often it's used. Oftentimes, it's daily, but it's not always. And you see the one is used Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. So we did look at each of the classroom spaces, each of the office spaces, any available space in the building to say, when is it used? We went for a walk since the last time we talked, and when I say we is myself, Dr. Gaudioso, who's our Director of Elementary Education, Jim Lill, who's the Director of Operations, and Ken Pitts, who's the Assistant Director of Operations. So we went out to the schools, and we used this room utilization chart, and we also used the floor plans of the building and walked around with the principals and looked at every space that's available in the building. High-level findings from that are that we have 3 schools that have space, and they don't require any additional modification. So Belmont Hills, Gladwin, and Penn Valley can house full-day kindergarten. There's actually some additional space in some of those schools as well. One of our schools has a space, but we're going to be recommending a facilities upgrade, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. And 2 schools require facilities modification to run the program. I think probably no surprise that you're going to hear me say Marion and Penwyn. We have to do some facilities upgrades to make the program work, and that's in those schools. The good news is, though, based on our evaluation of our facilities, we feel like we have enough space for our students to attend their home schools and that we will not need to put students in another building. So we think we can house it within the schools, which is really good news for us. Specifically, when we look at the modifications and the relocation estimates, what you'll see is, and I'm going to break everything down by category for a cost estimate, and then I'll bring it together in the end. But let's start with the building modification and relocation estimates. Kenwood, I said we wanted to make an adjustment. Well, we have a space. We have 2 large kindergarten spaces. One of those 2 large kindergarten classrooms has been cut in half, and it's used for 2 different purposes, EDK, extended kindergarten, and then also full day K. And so, I'm sorry, half day K program. We would like to remove that wall and then open up the space and have 2 large kindergarten spaces next to each other like we've had in the past. It's a nominal cost for that. It's $1,500. At Marion Elementary School, we have several modifications that we would recommend. The first one, number 1, actually would happen this summer so that we could put a K+ program if it is approved by the school board. So room 220 has a wall that we installed ourselves. We would remove that wall. Currently in that space, we have our ESL program, and then the other side of it is a storage area. So we would remove that wall and make it a full classroom space again. That would be this summer. The other modifications would happen over the next summer, and so we would be recommending that we take another wall out between room 117 and 117A. We would recommend that we put a STEM room in the library. Currently, when you look at Marion's library, it has a STEM area in it. We would want to put walls up so that it becomes a classroom, and the STEM room then converts to a full-day K room. We would need some additional small group spaces by making these adjustments, and so we're recommending that we would put a small group room in the lobby when you walk into Marion Elementary School. Penwyn also needs some adjustments, and so we would recommend that room 145, which is currently the new nurses suite. It actually became a nurses suite during COVID because we needed to have an isolation room. So we'd recommend bringing that back to a classroom and moving the nurses suite back to where it was. We have a large classroom for 200A, and we would recommend that we subdivide that so we get some smaller spaces in that area so we could open up larger spaces for kindergarten classes. And we would also recommend that we add a restroom outside of a classroom where 167 is. There's like a little alcove area, and we could put an extra bathroom in there that would allow our kindergarten students to have another facility to be able to use. It's important to note that all of the kindergarten classrooms will not have a bathroom. Based on these recommendations, they will all have a sink though. And so we're trying to get additional bathroom space at Penwyn, and that's why that recommendation is right there. District-wide, you see $30,000, and that money is really about relocation of some of our support programs. We're anticipating that we'll have to move some programs around in the district to give us additional space. And we know we'll have to move teachers around as well, and so we're estimating $30,000 for that. So the total estimated cost for building modifications and that relocation is $81,500. In addition to that, we didn't only look inside of the facility, we looked at the outside of the facility as well, at the playground spaces, and based on our walks, what we noted was that Marion Elementary needs additional playground equipment, and so we have an estimate for that on the screen. Penn Valley as well needs additional kindergarten equipment because right now there could only be one class out there at a time. Penwyn is the only elementary school that does not have a playground, and so we would be recommending putting a kindergarten playground at Penwyn Elementary School. The total cost for playgrounds would be $110,000. We have also evaluated our staffing needs for the program to take place in 24-25, and we talked about regular education several different times, but you could see a breakdown by regular education, student services, and support staff. We would estimate if K+ were to be expanded in the upcoming school year that we would need another 14.5 classroom teachers. We would need 2.5 related arts teachers. Student services is recommending 3.0 special education teachers. You see a 1.5 school counselor there. We actually right now pay for a 2.0 school counselors at the elementary level out of the ESSER grant. In the upcoming school year, we're anticipating those two positions to continue to be grant funded through the new mental health block grant from the state. If that grant were to continue another year, instead of 1.5 counselors, we'd be recommending 2.0. If it does not continue, we'd recommend reducing the 2.0 to a 1.5. Currently, we have Gladwin, Penn Valley, and Penwyn have 2 counselors per building. We recommend having each of those schools have 1.5 counselors per building. Still meets the requirements for our caseload ratios. In addition to that, we would recommend a 1.0 speech therapist. From a support staff lens, we would be looking at 6 instructional assistants, 1 in each of the buildings. And then recess staff, we don't actually recommend adding recess staff, but we're recommending adding an additional hour per day to their workday so they can cover an additional lunch period. Okay, so when we look at the total estimated cost of all of those items, we have $3,189,409. One-time costs also are included in the budget estimate. For furniture, we're estimating $130,000. Instructional resources and materials, that actually includes current kindergarten programming as well as new kindergarten programming because we're sure that we'll want to enhance the half-day programs. And so when we're talking about resources and materials, we're looking at not only new classrooms, but existing classrooms as part of that. Professional development is part of that, and that figure 17.5 is actually for the summertime. You'll see that I have another estimate for next school year as well as that 17.5, but that's for the summer before we would open the program. And then technology specifically is about our one-to-one iPads for kindergarten, and that's where that estimate comes from. So the total cost estimate of one-time cost is $515,677. You don't see Transportation I haven't talked about in here, and that was because when we evaluated it, we recognized that we need 3 additional runs, but we feel like we could take that within what we have as our current staffing, so there's no additional costs associated with that. I also don't have costs in there for food services because that's a different budget item, and so we're assuming that to be a cost-neutral expense as well. So to break it out by school year, we recommend one change from a facilities perspective this summer, and that was that Marion that I talked about, that wall removal. All the remainder of the facilities and playground modifications would happen during the 24-25 school year. Staffing costs of $345,000 this year is estimated for the expansion of K+ if it's approved by the school board. And then one-time costs we have projected in our current budget for next year, which include curriculum writing, professional development, and resources, and you see that at $46,000. When everything comes together, between the 23-24 and the 24-25 school year, our total estimated implementation cost is $4,347,586 for the program. And just to circle back to where we said we were going to head, the last time that we met, we are on target. We finished our facilities tours. Actually, we finished them before May. We finished them in April, so we were a little ahead of time. But we are presenting that tonight to you. We'll start our facilities upgrades this summer and continue that through the summer of next year. Some of it will have planning associated with it and permits associated with it, so you'll see that happening through the school year. This summer, we know we'll begin to talk about where do we want to go on our site planning visits, our site tours. It won't happen in September because school will be opening, and so people don't typically welcome visitors, but beginning early October, we'll want to do that. Curriculum and scheduling process throughout the school year next year. There's a decision point we left in there about reallocation of students. We don't think it's necessary, but we really don't know what's ahead of us. Our projections we feel are good. We used MCPC, but we think maybe they're going to be higher. And so that's still a little unknown for us. There's definitely unknowns that are out there, and so we left that in there anyway. And so you could see the rest of it. But this is our process that we're projecting out for the rest of the time before we implement full-day kindergarten. Questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. McGloin. I want to open it up to the board for questions. Mr. Lee?
Thank you. This is very informative. Could you put it on slide 6? Just curious, what's included in these cost estimates? Is that labor and materials?
I'm turning anything facilities over to Jim Will, so I'm passing it.
Correct, that would include labor and materials. I mean, in the case of Kinwood, you're actually removing an existing wall, which is not a load-bearing or structural wall. It's actually a gypsum framed wall that we installed several years ago. So it includes both labor and material.
And are we expecting to do all of the work ourselves? Is that why these numbers are so low?
Based on the scope of what we're looking at, that is something we have the capability of doing in-house, correct?
Okay. So adding the bathroom as well, we're going to do that in-house?
Correct, because there is an adjacency to another bathroom where there's already some plumbing.
Gotcha.
That's the one that we do need to do more homework on because it does require more complexity because of the plumbing. Probably have to get some architectural plans just to make sure that whatever we lay out does have ADA compliance. But again, it is something that we anticipate we have the capabilities to do in-house.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a pleasant surprise. I was expecting these numbers to be much higher. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Ms. Schaffmeister, go ahead.
Just to clarify, I thought I heard you say the extended kindergarten that's currently happening, did you say that's going to run at the same time, or is that ceasing to happen after full day K would?
It'll cease to happen. So the classroom that I was talking about where we're going to remove a wall this summer at Marion, half of it, I believe that's what I was talking about. It will cease to exist. It was actually Kinwood's classroom that I was speaking about. So when we take that wall down, we'll only have full day kindergarten programs at that point.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the total estimated cost, so I think that's slide 11. So if we were looking at ongoing costs, sort of past 24, 25, obviously including whatever increases would be included, those ongoing costs then for the full day K are the staff, the 3.2, just under 3.2 for the staffing, and then the 60,000 for the building operating costs.
Yes,
Is
that's
that
correct.
correct?
Yep.
So that's about 3.25
Yes.
sort of ongoing costs that we need to think about during our budgeting program.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Mr. Mooring?
And this is just, I saw on one of the slides about the playgrounds, and it was saying that there was a need to build a new playground at Penwyn. There is an existing playground at Penwyn, but they just need a smaller one, is that?
Right, so the equipment, the Penwood Playground right now is for 1st through 4th grade. Typically for kindergarten, we buy smaller equipment for those students. We don't, it is the only school where we don't have a dedicated kindergarten playground at this point in time. Yeah.
Ms. Kalish is joining us via the cloud. And Ms. Kalish, did you have a comment, a question?
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. I apologize for my frog voice. I am joining you from home, so I don't share. Let me get my... So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate all the work that's been done on this. I know this was a really big list, and I'm really, frankly, really pleased. I really appreciate that we're not going to need to do partner schooling almost exclusively, and that there was a really impressive dive into facilities. I just wanted to ask about Gladwin, because in those first few slides you said that Gladwin was one of the 2 schools that needed the most new classrooms, but also they wouldn't need any renovations.
I don't think I heard that last part, I'm sorry.
That
Sorry.
Gladwin would have the most new classrooms but would not need modifications, was the
It
question.
does not need modifications. We have enough space, even though it needs 4 classrooms, we have ample classroom space in that building at this point.
That's fantastic. I also, like what Mr. Lee was getting at, I'm very pleased and pleasantly surprised, I will say, with the numbers that we would need to do our facilities renovations. And they all sound really, really good to me, that I agree that that's not, the annual operating cost is not a nothing number, but I think that the one-time costs are impressively low, and I'm really very pleased, and I appreciate all your hard work.
I just wanted to make one clarifying point when you had talked about the staffing around the student services and the school counselors that are currently funded by ESSER. Just wanted to clarify for folks that might not know that that is COVID funding.
Yes.
So we're coming towards the end of the COVID funding. But to balance that out, there's a new grant. Could you speak a little bit to that new grant?
Probably Vic might be able to speak a little bit better to it, but it's a block grant at the state level for mental health supports. A lot of times block grants end up staying, so it's something that continues on, like Ready to Learn block grant is one of the block grants that we've had for probably 7 or 8 years at this point in time, but we don't know for certain that that's going to be the case.
Thank you. Do we have other? Ms. Garrison?
Thank you for the presentation. I just want to clarify, how many new students do we think we will have?
So when I don't have the answer off the top of my head. I can get that to you.
Okay.
I'm not 100% certain, and I don't want to misquote and get it wrong. I apologize.
No problem, thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. McGuane. Appreciate that. Mr. Orlando, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to jump a little bit in the agenda and offer Ms. Simmons the opportunity to do her student report. Ms. Simmons from Harriton High School.
Good evening, everyone. Recently, Lmsb, or National Societies of Black Engineers Junior, took a trip to Miami to compete at the regional level. On May 3rd, NHS, or National Honor Society, held induction for 109 students. And AHS, or National Art Honor Societies, also held their induction the next day and combined that with a Zenith art show. Harriton Science Olympiad finished first in the state, with Harriton finishing with 19 top 3 finishes overall and at least one individual accolade in all 23 events. Individual Rams have also been achieving wonderful things. Hannah Gao was one of 3 U.S. presidential scholars in the state of Pennsylvania. Sophomore Adie Lloyd was named Mainline Boys Athlete of the Week for his outstanding accomplishments in track and field after breaking both meet and school records in the 400. Senior Elizabeth Lee, who's one of 10 Pennsylvania students to receive an Amazon Future Engineering Scholarship. With this $40,000 scholarship, it also includes the opportunity for a paid summer internship once she completes her freshman year of college. The music department had a master class with guest conductor Martin Hulse as he shared his wisdom and experience with both the chorale and choir. Harriton hosted concerts in band and orchestra on April 26th and choir and jazz ensemble on May 4th, and will host the senior collage on May 16th and percussion ensemble on May 23rd. Looking to the future, Keystone testing will begin tomorrow, and a special schedule will be run for the next 4 school days. As always, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Simmons. I appreciate your time tonight. Ms. Wu is a graduating senior, so she's done with school already, so she's unable to join us. I did want to do one follow-up to one of your comments on for Science Olympiad, that Harriton came in first in the state, but Lower Merion High School came in second, which is really amazing. Each year, the top 2 teams in the state get to represent their schools at nationals, and so both Harriton and Lower Merion are going to nationals next weekend. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's a really amazing, and Lower Merion's catching up to Harriton, so.
Don't tell Mr. Goddard that.
All right. So next we'll move on to our budget review presentation with Ms. Schaefer and Mr. Orlando.
Okay, good evening again. I'm going to say a few words before I turn the mic over to Mr. Orlando to highlight the budget that's been prepared for the 23-24 school year. This overview is essentially our financing plan for the children of Lower Merion, and it's a spending plan that supports our extensive curricular and learning opportunities within the district. And as we've reflected in the various finance committee meetings that we've had year to date leading up to this presentation, that we follow certain accounting requirements in terms of establishing our budget and classifying the revenues and expenditures. And so when I turn the mic back over to Mr. Orlando, he's going to go into some of those classifications. But I thought it was important to, again, highlight the why behind our budgeting, and it's about what we're able to offer to students. And in some respects, I thought it was also a good opportunity to bring together some of the programs and changes that we've made this year that we've been able to highlight in various meetings we've had over the course of the year, but to bring them, again, some of those highlights for this evening I thought was important to showcase once again. So in terms of where we stand in our transition period, a lot has changed over the last few years. We've all experienced change because of the pandemic. We've changed the way we've delivered instruction because of the pandemic. But coming out of the pandemic, we've also changed almost our entire district structure. And I'm going to highlight that in a minute. But for those that may not be aware, our entire alignment of schools from K-8 changed this year. So we're in the first year of a major transition. All of our elementary schools moved from a K-5 configuration to a K-4 configuration, and our middle schools moved from a 6-8 configuration to a 5-8 configuration. And with that took a lot of work, and not just moving people in bodies into new locations, but also redesigning our programs that we deliver at those levels as well. I also want to note the impact of the pandemic on our work, because sometimes I feel it too. It's easy to rush to go back to normal because that's what makes us feel better. But the reality is, just a year ago, when I look back in my presentations, a year ago tomorrow, I was presenting to the board about transmission rates within Montgomery County. So we were still talking about COVID in that way, in terms of what mitigation measures needed to be applied or lifted, depending on those circumstances. So a lot has happened in a year. And in terms of the crisis response management tools, or the way we think about crisis, really applies in this moment, because what we know about crisis events is that the longer in duration they are, the longer typically the recovery is. So we still, consider this moment that we're in as a recovery phase from the pandemic, and we're still looking or trying to figure out what exactly those impacts are now and into the future. But back to some of the highlights from this year, one of the, in addition to the transitions, we added Shawana James Coles to the position of Director of DEI here in the District, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We established, under Dr. Mameen's leadership, the important place that position should sit within our organization, which is at the cabinet level. And since that time, you can see in various ways the impact of her work across the district, and our ability to work with her in collaborating on initiatives such as the Building Belonging, the building blocks, building vocabulary around our goals relating to equity work within the district. And so there's some great videos out there that showcase that work. We're bridging this conversation with students, bringing those perspectives into the conversation in meaningful ways. So a lot, again, has happened in a year, but we're really excited about where we are and where we can go from here. Again, I mentioned this, the Black Rock Middle School. We opened a new building. We have a brand new building, living into a new building, and Ms. Stout isn't here any longer, but I'm sure she can tell you some of the aches and pains of doing that. But I put this notation in here because I think it's important to remember the degree to which this was a big impact for us. In normal transition years, we're transitioning 5th to 6th grade, 8th to 9th grade. This year, we transitioned 4th, 5th, grades to middle school, and then 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade to a new middle school, and 8th grade to high school. So while typically we would be transitioning about 1,300 students, this year it was over 2,500 students. In typical years, it's a few staff that move across buildings. This year it was over 200 staff. So again, we're settling into new rhythms, new routines, and new programs. That being said, we've also done some amazing work. Our teachers have been here with the board, presenting some of that work for the curriculum committee of the board, the problem-based learning, the STEM specials that we offer now, authentic connections to our community through that work around problem-based learning, which was really exciting. I encourage people, if you want to take a look at those meetings, there's genuine and authentic excitement by our staff members in being able to take what was ideas or concepts in that development work and really bring them to life in schools, and seeing students thrive with those new experiences being available to them. At the 5-8 level, one of the things we've talked about recently, and certainly in the connection with the budget, is how we're doing teaming differently at the middle school level, and how that creates new and we would argue better experiences for students, whereas instead of being in silos in classrooms, the way the 5-8 experience is driven is to ensure that there is collaborative experience built by teachers with authentic connections among things such as food, like culinary skills and science. And what I'd point out here is also the ability to connect in meaningful ways within a team structure. So when we talk about and I'll talk about it in a minute, is the concerns and that recovery phase that we're in and the impact of social media. How do we make authentic connections within a teaming model at the middle school level so that they can process real life situations and real life events? And that responsive team meeting that I highlight here is what a teacher highlighted for us, which is being able to, with the work of a team of teachers, to say this event happened, maybe something went wrong, maybe a student said something that they shouldn't have said. How can we work through this as a team? Can we repair harm collectively within our community space, whether it's through poetry, whether it's through artwork, but it's that intentional way of designing spaces for students and staff to do these things at a high level and model what I think we want for our future. And so I think that's going back to why we recommended the teaming model and why it's important for us to keep that modeling in place, because really great things are just starting to happen and we want to continue to expand that work. Additional highlights that I think are really set Lower Merion apart in a lot of ways is the way that we've rethought opportunities for students at the 5-8 level, focusing on what those skills are that they need in order, if you think about the building blocks of middle school, how critical that is to entering a high school situation. If they build up a leadership profile by getting to that self-advocacy piece, and then also how do I learn strategies to be an advocate for others, and how important that is in that setting, so that those opportunities that become available are available at our high schools, that we have more students being prepared and ready to step into those roles, informally and formally. There are also opportunities this year for us to really focus on student voice, wellness, and rights and responsibilities. And these are all, this was a series of slides, and I tried to make it on one slide for the purposes of this evening. But things like student voter engagement, student wellness, and these ideals that I think we're championing as a district within our policies also necessitate the funding that allows us to realize those goals. And so whether that be the cost of a program or cost of staffing, there is the desire for Lower Merion to do things that honor these important pieces of what we think a complete and holistic student experience should be. Identifying ways to do that through policy, and then recognizing that in this moment we are we are challenged by some of the realities of the environment, whether it was caused by the pandemic, whether it was leading into the pandemic. I would argue probably more so in that vein, but the reality is we, as a community and as a district, want to, be in the best position to address the screen time, use of cell phones, use of technology, use of artificial intelligence, and all of those things that we need to consider as we move forward and continue to address that while we're building these programs that benefit students. Again, to do these things at a high level necessitates the appropriate level of staffing. So we know that students are struggling now. There's plenty of data out there showing us that that's the case. So we need to make sure that we're addressing the mental health needs of our students and also keeping our schools safe. So safety involves physical security, the ways in which we talk about building a positive culture and climate within our buildings. It takes the response planning that we have in place. So all of those things are built into this budget. So I think those are considerations that are on our mind and reflect why we built the budget the way we did. And then for the future, we know that we still have that recovery, not just from a mental health standpoint, but from an academic standpoint. The way in which we had to focus our curriculum during the pandemic we're probably seeing the impact of that to some degree. And so there are ways in which we want to make sure that we're providing appropriate supports to mitigate that impact. At the same time, the reality is we're challenged with a labor market that is not strong for education right now, and but a reality and potentially a fiscal reality for us moving forward. But I always like to kind of end on an optimistic note. We've done great things in the past. We have a tremendous strategic plan that we'd like to take some time next year in refreshing. It's I think, an optimal foundational document to be working from. We have a system that we're building up, our multi-tiered systems of support that give us a better framework to ensure that all of our students have consistent experiences across the district, no matter what school or what teacher they have. So that's a really important piece that we need to move forward and continue to build on. And there are opportunities there to partner with places like Challenge Success that we've done before, and Penn GSE to again, do that measurement piece. Where are we? How are our students doing? And be able to come back to you after we've done these things and say, here are our results, because that's an important factor in your ongoing support for this budget. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Orlando.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. I just want to go over some of the highlights of the budget here. So as you can see, the district, we did not file a preliminary budget under Act 1. Instead, the school board passed a resolution adopting that the certifying the millage rate will not exceed the Act 1 index was 4.1%. Associated with preliminary budget is applying for exceptions. That is not part of our this year's financial plan. There is a $4 million credit, tax credit as required by the budget litigation settlement from our fund balance that will be used in this budget. And we continue to have challenges due to a number of factors contributing to our growing expenses, and also we're trying to plan for our near and long-term goals. We had 3 finance meetings this year, which went to a deeper dive into the budget, and those are available on our website if you'd like to find more detailed information on the budget process. That leads us to tonight, which is May 15th. Under Act 1, the school board is required to approve a proposed final budget. And that deadline for public inspection is May 21. And then June 9th is the public notice of intent to adopt the 23-24 budget. And then we are scheduled for June 20th, the final board meeting to approve the final budget, and that's where the board will establish or adopt the millage rate. So we'll go over the revenues first. Where does the money come from? As you can see, as in the past, most of our funding comes from local revenues. That's over 82%. We receive about 15% from the state, and then we're using about 2% between the federal government and that fund balance for the tax credit. And you can see under local sources all the different categories. They equal a little over $257 million. That is all the different taxes that we collect in addition to our interest income. You can see the interest income has increased. I'm sure as you're well aware, the Federal Reserve has increased the Fed rate several times this year, so the interest and investment income has been very, very good. Under the state, we have about $48 million right now as in our proposed final budget. Please note the state has not passed their state budget, so our basic ed and our special education subsidy figures are not final until that happens. If they are available prior to our June 20th adoption, we'll make those appropriate adjustments. And just one note, the state property tax reduction allocation is at the same level as this year, a little over $4.3 million. Remember, this year there was an increase in that allocation, I think from about 3.4 million up to 4.3. And then under the other state subsidies, as mentioned earlier, there are a couple of grants that we're receiving for mental health and also for safety and security. And then the final number is the federal sources. You can see that number has decreased. And as we mentioned earlier this evening, the COVID funding is coming to an end. So in the 23-24, it's maybe the last year that we'll have any COVID funding. So that Those numbers equal $307 million with the tax credit of $4 million of fund balance. You can see it's $311 million. The other part of the budget is our expenses, and the state requirement for reporting is in two ways. One is function and object, and a function describes the activities for which a service or material is required. So you can see there's four main categories. The 1000 series is all the instruction that occurs in the district, and that's 57% of the budget. The 2000 series is all of support services. You can see the list there. It's our drivers, our custodians, nurses, administration, guidance counselors, et cetera, are in that category. Under the 3000, that's the non-instructional services. So that would be like our student clubs that we have, our student athletic programs, our community pool, our crossing guards. And the 5000 series is our debt service and our capital leases and any interfund transfers out. The other way that the state requires us to report the budget and our expenditures is by object, and that describes the service or commodity bought. So you can see 76% of our budget is all salaries and benefits. So you can see education is a very labor-intense industry, and the remaining other parts of the budget amount to 24%, and you can see those categories. They're objects 300 through 900. Here we're just showing you the object. This is the current budget for this year. It's $303.9 million, and the upcoming proposed final budget is $320.7 million. And you can see the breakout of the different categories. You can see salaries and benefits. The 300 is purchase professional services, so you have like IU services, any type of consultants that we hire, legal, athletic trainers, and so forth will be in that, mostly independent contractors. And the 400 object is purchase property and services. Some of our utilities like trash and sewer are included in that. Any type of repairs or any type of rentals we have is included in that. The 5000 series is other purchase services. Most of that is tuition. So our charter schools, special ed, VOTEC, any type of contracted transportation, our general insurance falls under that category. And your 600 object is your supplies, so any of your classroom supplies, non-instructional supplies, books, technology, any of our energy, which would be our electricity, gas, diesel, and so forth, included in that. Properties, just some maintenance equipment we buy. And then the 800 is mostly made up of our interest for our debt service, and our 900 mostly is our principal and our transfer to other funds. So that equals $320,695,916. And you can see the difference between that $311 million figure is $9,252,012, based on a value of a mill a little over $7.7 million. The additional mills required is 1.1903. So that'd be a millage right now of 32.3948. So that would be a 3.82% increase in the millage rate, which is below the 4.1 Act 1 index. Our expenditures did increase over $16 million, or 5.5%, from the current budget. So looking at a medium household of approximately $250,000, the increase would be around $298. However, it does not include the tax credit, which in this case is probably somewhere around $120 to $125 that they would see on their tax bill. And then the next steps under Act 1, again tonight, the board is required to approve the proposed final budget. That will be on public display by the deadline. And then we have a public notice due by the 9th. And then final budget is on the June 20th board meeting. And I'll open up to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Orlando. Ms. Schaefer, I want to open it up to the board for any questions. I want to also let people know that we did have a series of 3 Finance Committee meetings over the last month. Those were recorded and are available on the website if you would like to take a deeper dive into some of the information that was provided in overview here tonight. A lot more of the conversation amongst the board and the Finance Committee happened, and you can see that online. So are there questions from the board? Ms. Shurak.
Thank you so much. In the proposed final budget that you have here on slide 20, are the costs that Dr. McGloin presented for full day K for next year included in this already?
Correct, the 23-24.
Okay, thank you.
I would encourage anyone interested to actually watch the finance committee meetings. We had some fairly robust and rich conversations around it. In fact, I still have some open questions to the administration about this current budget. So I'm actually going to abstain from voting tonight on this budget, but I'm looking forward to ongoing conversation.
And with respect to that, we are going to add an additional Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday in the evening, on Wednesday, May 30th, thank you. Wednesday, May 31st, that will replace our current Communications Committee meeting to do some follow-up both on some of the conversation we're going to have in just a bit around the some potential tax rebates and also around some additional questions that we had at our Finance Committee meetings. Do we have any other comments or questions from the board?
I had a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Kalish.
Sorry, Mr. Orlando, could you, I only briefly heard Ms. Shurak's question, and I was just hoping you could give a little clarity on what amount of the full-day kindergarten costs that we saw laid out in Dr. McGloin's presentation are included in this year's budget.
Yeah, I believe there was a chart that Dr. McGloin showed, 23-24, I'm going to say it's around 400,000, I think, top of my head. I don't know the exact figure, but that's, okay.
Yeah, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm going to squint, but it's $406,500. It's inclusive of 3 K-plus teachers that we're recommending, curriculum writing, professional development resources, and some facilities upgrades.
And that includes the playgrounds as well?
Does not.
It does not. That cost is estimated to be in the 24-25 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much. So our next topic will still be Mr. Orlando.
I'll come back
but
up
I
to the
wanted
mic again, okay?
I wanted to provide a little bit of context for this conversation around tax rebate programs. There are 2 tax rebate programs that the district has been asked to consider. The first is a Pennsylvania State Property Tax and Rent Rebate Program that really would address and affect and impact our lowest income residents. And it is something that the board has previously supported via resolution. We felt strongly at the time that while we were in litigation that it did not make sense to be looking at some tax questions. But now that that litigation is settled, we are bringing this forward as something that for the board to consider for this year. And then the second one is a firefighter tax refund that the Lower Merion Township Board of Commissioners has asked us to consider a new program that allows for school districts to provide some tax relief to our volunteer firefighters. So Mr. Orlando, if you want to provide some more of the details.
Sure. I'm going to go over the first program that you mentioned about the Pennsylvania State Property Tax Rent Rebate Program, and that's for qualifying seniors and other citizens. The state has had this program for quite a while, decades now. And so many school districts in the Commonwealth do have programs that use the data from the PA Property Tax Rent Rebate Program to provide those qualifying residents some tax relief. So this slide here is just what the requirements of the state program, which is what our program would follow. So you have a claimant who must own or occupy a home in Pennsylvania for a period in which the rebate is claimed. So that would be somebody who's paying property taxes. A claimant who must have rent or occupied in PA during the period for the rebate is claimed in a home, an apartment, a nursing home, or a similar residence. So that's the first part. The second part is they have to be age 65 or older. if the claimant is under 65, but their spouse is over 65, widows or widowers, 50 and older, and disabled individuals 18 and older. The second part is the income thresholds that the state requires. So if you're a renter, if you have your income levels, and there are certain requirements of what income is excluded and excluded by the state. So they have $0 to $15,000. If you're a renter, you can see there's a maximum rebate of $650 to $500. If you're a homeowner and you have income levels that qualify between 0 and 35,000 under the PA 1000 program, your maximum rebate is anywhere from, your range is $650 to $250. And then there is an additional 50% increase in that standard rebate for those individual seniors who have household incomes under 30,000 and pay more than 15% of their income and property taxes. So for example, if you were in the first level and your homeowner is 0 to 8,000 and you have a maximum rebate of $650, you're eligible for an additional 50% or another $325 above the $650. This is the latest statistical information. It was published in May of 22 for Lower Merion School District residents. You can see there was 376 individuals that qualify for the program in that 2020 distribution, and they received over $188,000 of rebate from the state, and the other two charts there are just breaking down between owners and renters. And then we looked at what other school districts offer these programs, and you can see on the left-hand side in Montgomery County, the percentage of that PA property tax rebate ranges anywhere from 25% up to 100%. You can see it's 25%, 30%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. And again, all those individuals have different individuals who qualify for the program. Some have more, some have less than what we have. And on the right-hand side then, we just took the information from the prior chart and for Lower Merion, the 188,000, and then took 25% of that, which is a little over 47,000, looked at 30%, which is a little over 56,000, 50% is a little over 94,000, 75% is about 141,000, and 100% is the $188,000. I think that's all for this part.
Terrific. So I want to open it up to the board to see if you have any questions about the program or thoughts about implementing this at some level. Yep.
Could you put it on slide 27? So just to clarify for everyone, the 376 residents who qualify because they applied for the state tax rebate.
Well, they were approved, so they applied. So you apply for it, and the state has to approve you. Once you've been approved, these are the individuals that were approved, and this is how much of the $188,000 they received from the state in the form of a rebate check.
Right, but we're not actually aware of how many folks would be eligible because conceivably there's a population of folks who don't know about the state program and didn't know to apply. So as part of this, we could also, package it with an awareness campaign so that folks know to apply for the state rebate as well.
Yeah, we've had individuals called in the past, and we've directed them to to this program, the Pennsylvania program they weren't aware of in the past. So we would continue to do the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a very good point of clarification, just to note that it's a program that is an existing state program that the school district would then sort of use that existing eligibility to determine and provide rebates based on that. So it's not a separate program. So while there is a cost to the district to implement this, right? So it's the cost of the rebate itself, but also sort of the administrative staffing costs to it. But because it's a program that already exists, we aren't doing the determination ourselves, right?
That's correct.
The state identifies or confirms who is eligible, and then we can provide rebates to those individuals.
What happens is the school districts have like a one-page form. Well, you have to take different information off of your PA form, apply that, sign it, and provide a couple documents, but it's not like a long, it's pretty basic form.
Thank you. Are there other? Ms. Garrison?
Thank you. Do we have know the percentage of people who would fall into that category, roughly?
I don't have that statistical information. I do want to note one thing I didn't mention here is, as part of Governor Shapiro's budget proposal, he's looking to expand this program to increase the income level. I'm not sure about for the renters, but I think it's for all of them from 35 to 45,000. So he's looking to increase that to try to get more people in the program. He's also proposed, I believe it's $130 million to add to the program in his budget proposal. And I think from what I read, he's a very strong proponent of it, is looking to keep expanding the program as it goes on down the years.
Thank you.
So I think that brings up a point across the entire budget conversation around that there is a function of that we're preparing a budget and voting on a budget that includes variables that we don't control and may not have the answers to, or the information prior to not only tonight's vote, but actually the vote, the actual vote on the budget in June, right? That there are, this is a piece of it. We don't necessarily know in advance how many residents would qualify. But just overall, it's unlikely that the state budget will be complete by then or passed.
Good question. I don't have my crystal ball out, so I can't really tell you that, but hopefully it'll be, but looking at the history of it, typically it won't be completed or approved by the time we're done our process.
Yeah. Thank you. Other questions? Thoughts? So I'm going to put out there that I think that this is something that is important and something that I support. I do believe that a number of the districts that have implemented this have done it over time and did not do like a full, a full rebate at the beginning, but sort of took the first step that first year to say, perhaps do 25% or 30% the first year and then revisit over time each year to say, okay, how did this work? What was the process? What were the costs
That's
to us?
correct. So the district you see with the higher percentage, they started out smaller and gradually increased it over the number of years.
Right. So that is something that I would support, and I don't know if other board members want to speak to that.
I would support that, the 25%.
Well, at the committee, there was some support for starting off higher than that. I would support starting off at 50%. Not to, but in that, would we be proposing starting at a level and then revisiting over time? What you said, President Klein appealed to me to start off and see what that repercussion is going to be and how it grows, and then make some decision based on that. Knowing that the numbers aren't going to be huge, but I think at least to control.
I also support starting at a modest level and working our way towards looking at what Governor Shapiro is going to change in terms of the policies and the thresholds. He's planning on expanding the program.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you to my colleagues for providing your thoughts on it. And I think that we can move on to the firefighter tax rebate. Again, this is a relatively new opportunity or new program. Many localities, townships, and the borough of Narberth and Lower Marion Township do provide tax rebates to their volunteer firefighters. It is relatively new that school districts have been asked and are considering this. My understanding is that Neshaminy has implemented this year something along these lines. Don't know if you want to do a little brief description, and then I was going to ask Mr. Bernheim to share as well.
Sure. So as Mrs. Klein said, there is a firefighter tax rebate that's offered at the municipalities levels. So the information on the screen just kind of shows the top, I call the top section there is what the borough and the township reimburse to their firefighters. I guess it's 59 that qualify. There's certain criteria they have to meet in order to qualify, and those 59 individuals did qualify for it and received a little over $65,000. And then the next three sections are just kind of showing what does that equate to. And again, that's only the township and borough property tax on that top one. The next three sections show you basically the school tax is at 100%. I believe that's a little over $360,000. And then we just show that level at the 50% level, which is a little over 180,000. The 25% level is about 90,000. And then we looked at if giving a set sum of money, either $1,000 to each of those qualifying firefighters, which would equate to about $59,000, and then look to see if we capped it at $500, that would be $29,500. So there comes some of the information the board requested on the firefighters. So that's the chart.
Thank you, Mr. Orlando. We have Mr. Bernheim, who's a Lower Merion Township Commissioner, here this evening to
Ask a question.
do a quick presentation. Yes, Mr. Lee, if you want to ask a question first.
Just for clarification, do we know what the rebate in Neshaminy is? Is it a percentage of taxes paid, or is it a fixed dollar amount? What's the actual rebate that Neshaminy approved?
I believe the article said was $800 is what they're approved their school board to rebate the firefighters.
So Neshaminy approved a fixed dollar amount, not based on taxes paid.
That's correct, according to the
And
article.
I did confirm that on their website, that the actual resolution said that.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Permit me to introduce myself. For those who do not know me, my name is Dan Bernheim. I've had the distinct pleasure of serving as a township commissioner for the past 12 years, 6 of which were as the president of the board, 10 on our fire committee, and thus as a member of the Lower Merion Board of Directors of the fire committee. And I appear here today in support of this tax credit proposal and would like to be able to take a moment and two to explain why it is that I wholeheartedly make this recommendation. And for those who are on the Finance Committee, please accept my apologies if this rerun seems a little bit redundant to you. I'm just not that clever a wordsmith to do this twice with all new language. I also, before I start, would like to express my appreciation of President Klein. She has received emails from me every month for the past 14 months trying to have this opportunity to come before you to discuss, to see if I can persuade you all to do the same thing that the township has done as a 100% tax credit rebate for our volunteer firefighters. So that I can put that in perspective, very few realize that our fire service is made up of 6 separate, in Lower Merion, plus Narberth, 6 separate fire companies, which are separate and distinct. And that is of Gladwin, Belmont, Penwyn, Bryn Mawr, Merion, and Union. Before the fire committee, I made reference Union being the oldest in the fire in the nation. Oops, it's Merion. Trust me, as I walked out of the room, I was so corrected. But each fire company is comprised of some career firefighters, but the backbone of each fire company are its volunteers. In 2022, just so you'll know, we had over 2,500 alarms, of which more than 1/2 were false. And the individuals who are in our fire service, these are the ones, be it 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning, leave their job, leave the comfort of their beds, and respond not knowing whether it is real or not. There are approximately 240 volunteers. To reach the first level for a volunteer of what's known as the certification of Firefighter 1, it takes 180 hours in order to be able to do that. And in this year, this calendar year, there were 12,393 personnel hours of training in 446 classes, of which 266 firefighters attended. And besides Firefighter 1, there are other classifications that are out there. I used for the Finance Committee an example of how all of these people need to stay up to date and talked about electric vehicles. We've all heard about those jaws of death, which will cut somebody out of a vehicle if there's a problem. If it's an electric vehicle and you do not do it properly, you and those around you will be electrocuted. Each vehicle is made differently. Each firefighter must know that in case they arrive on a scene just to handle a situation of that nature. A fire, if it's real, duplicates every 9 seconds. So having personnel on the scene promptly is key. In 2022, just using Gladwin, they had an average of 4.6 firefighters that were on that first piece of apparatus out the door in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That is remarkable, and it's comprised mostly of the volunteers. The money saved by our fire service in preserving real and personal property came out to, in 2022, $33.8 million. So what we are talking about is trying to find a mechanism whereby we can recruit and retain these firefighters, which are so fundamental to our community at large. It was in 2017 that the state passed a statute that said the maximum a municipality and/or school district would be able to give some type of rebate was 20%. They then increased it effective 2022 to 100%. And at the time, as I served as board president, I was glad to sign that ordinance in order to be able to give the full amount to each of our firefighters. In order to qualify, however, you need that Firefighter 1 status, and there is a point system. It's 115 points, which are predicated upon the number of calls that you respond to, the number of in-service work that you do for the fire companies, your training, your additional accreditation that you receive, your years of service, and recognizing that some of our volunteers also serve in the military, and so that they're not deprived of that opportunity. If there's military service, they get credit for that as well. When I appeared here before the Finance Committee, with me was Tom Hayden, who's the chief of the Marion Fire Company, Brooke McMullen, who's the chief of who's the president of the Marion Fire Company, Andrew Culberson, who's the assistant chief at Gladwin, Blaine Lease, who is the chief at Gladwin, and James McCoy, who's our newly appointed chief of the department. They and every chief and members of each of the fire company would have been here this evening. They would have been fighting for seats with these fine people behind me. It was at my request they not attend, one, because I don't want to impose upon them, and secondly, the standing ovation they got from the people in the Finance Committee, that sent the message enough as to how the school board respects and appreciates what they do. We have so few arrows in our quiver in order to go ahead and recruit firefighters. We need this type of assistance in order to be able to do it. It truly attracts people, and more importantly, once they are trained and they learn the system, it helps keep them here, and it helps some of them say, I now will be able to afford a home so that I can remain in Lower Merion and be a volunteer. Each of those individuals who I mentioned, over 30 years of service, 3 of them were second-generation firefighters. That commonality is less and less in today's world. But with the assistance of what I'm advocating here for you all, it will help tremendously. So I mentioned that I had the privilege of serving as the president of our Board of Commissioners. I've also had the opportunity to serve as the president of the Montgomery County Township Commissioner Association and the Eastern Pennsylvania Township Commissioner Association. I cannot tell you the number of times the conversation started, how do you do it in Lower Merion? We are considered the leaders. And while I've passed the baton of chair of those committees on, likewise, I still attend. And I still get the question, how do you do it in Lower Merion? So what I really would like, and I really hope that you support, is that when I get the question, how do you handle the tax credit, that I can say the township and the school district, they give the full Monty. So if there are any questions that I can answer, I would be very glad to do so for this board.
Ms. Shurak?
Hi there, thanks so much for the information. How many current vacancies are there, or how do you determine? I hear you advocating as part of a recruitment strategy for firefighters in the township. So I'm curious how many current vacancies there are. Are the houses fully staffed? What's the challenge that we see from a staffing and HR perspective?
So,
understanding they're not paid.
yeah, it's a fair question. Let me answer it with the best statistics that I possess. There are career firefighters you're going to have at each station, too, who are career. The volunteer fire service, which makes up of, I said, it's approximately 240. You have about 10% of those that then stop volunteering in a given year. The problem is that it's only those who show up regularly, and that does not happen with all 240 of them, and it has different degrees as to how much the volunteers are actually there. As I mentioned to you also, 50% of these alarms are false. You have to imagine, if you're a volunteer, sometimes when that alarm goes off in the middle of your job or in the middle of your sleep, you're going to say, is it really worth it? They do show up, but not everybody. So it's hard to say that we have, quote, vacancies. We are always looking for volunteers who are going to be here so we don't have this constant turnover. Lower Merion is not alone in this search and these problems. It is systemic throughout the country where the backbone of fire companies are volunteers. So I'm not sure if that totally gives you what you're looking for.
No,
I don't have specific numbers because it doesn't really work that way.
I don't have a scope of the problem that we're actually trying to solve. So I very much appreciate the service of firefighters and don't want that to be misinterpreted, but it's unclear to me what the problem is we're solving with this.
Let me clarify it for you. As extreme as you can think, in order to maintain the volunteer fire service, and we do not want to, nor could we afford to go full-time firefighters, we need to be able to figure out how to maintain the volunteers, to get quality ones that want to stay here. I can't give it to you in numbers other than how many we have on the books, but it's how many of those numbers actually show up. Thus, when we're talking here of those who own property, 45 who have qualified, we want to keep them. We don't want them to be dissuaded not to do it. So that's where the focus of this is. And then when others come in to say, look, if I'm here for a period of time, I meet these metrics, I get this as a benefit.
I get it in
that
theory.
helps.
The data would be really helpful to understand the scope of the problem.
Well, I'll see if there's anything further that I can provide. Okay.
What gets you call the house before you go on calls?
So I wanted to sort of follow up a little bit in terms of, it is such a critical function, and we are so appreciative of the work of the volunteers. I guess the question is, why is it a volunteer situation? Like, what is it about? Is it the township? Is it sort of, this is the way it is in the state, that we don't actually pay our firefighters to do what is such a critical and important job?
Well, if we were to go, and we actually looked into this a couple years ago, from a volunteer system to a full-time, career firefighters, the cost of it was something that the township probably would not want to be able to support, especially where we are able to have such an effective fire system through the volunteers that we have. We are not looking to change that system. We are fortunate, and as I believe I stated to the committee before, have one of the best fire services there are, but there's always the concern in maintaining those who have the training and those who are willing to do the additional training that's necessary to perform the task.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Ms. Chapman?
Hi, thanks for coming tonight. I do appreciate my civic association. Kevin always presents about the firehouse and all that they do to support the community. I'm trying to wrap my head around this, how the point system works like the when you're talking about supporting them, this is only going to be supporting volunteers who are homeowners, is that correct?
Well, you're not going to get a tax credit on real estate unless you own a home.
Yeah, so,
Right.
so I'm wondering why we're going through it from the route of real estate versus, because that means, no, there's inequity about who's supporting the firefighters and volunteers. Is there a reason why we are focusing on homeowner volunteers versus renters? And because in my mind, I'm wondering, is it better to give funding to each of the firehouses to support, like with a stipend for their volunteers? And why are we going, I'm just wondering why we're going this route.
Because the state statute, which is what we're looking to have implemented, that is the one that dictates where the credits can come from. So it is, we are trying to take the opportunity to utilize the state statute to its fullest. So it's the one that spells out that it's got to be for real estate taxes. As for the contributions that are made to the fire homes, in each of the 6 firehouses, the township provides roughly $330,000 per firehouse. And part of that goes into their recruitment and retention funds. They also get other state money as well for recruitment and retention through what's known as the relief to some degree. And they also raise money on their own for these purposes and have different campaigns. But each fire company doesn't end up getting the same. That's just the reality of it, as the way it works out. So we do fund this as well. We also provide funding which goes for other type of stipends to help some of the volunteers who are not homeowners. That's part of the money that goes into the firehouses, who then disperse it on their own.
Thanks, that makes sense. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions, Ms. Garrison?
Just out of curiosity, if we had to fully fund the firefighters and pay the people who are now volunteers, what would it cost approximately?
I don't have those numbers before me, but we did actually look at that a couple years ago and ran what those costs were. And there was not support within the community to do that, as long as we were able to maintain the volunteer fire service. If this group wants those numbers, I will be able to get them and provide them to you.
Okay, thank you.
I guess a follow-up question to that is, if there was not support within the community to have tax dollars go to that, why is there a belief there would be support in the community to reallocate their tax dollars that would go to the school district to the firefighters for the credit? Have we done data and research and have information on that?
Well, because the quantity of dollars we're talking about is far, far more significant to have a completely paid fire department versus having the volunteers. The two numbers are not even in the same stratosphere, let alone the same ballpark.
And we have survey data or something to support that?
Well, we have the actual data because we tried to figure out what the cost would be in order to do a paid fire service.
So there's survey data about implementing this program through the school district that you have, or you're talking about when the township said, the community said they weren't interested in having their tax dollars pay for it?
Well, when we came up with what the amount was for a fully paid fire service versus what we have with the volunteers, it was recognized then, and I think that even predates to some degree when I was on the board, but it's been revisited, that was something that either the community wouldn't support, and if we're having the success with those unique individuals that are volunteer firefighters, why would we go ahead and impose that additional cost? As to your question, would anybody hesitate if they saw what the small percentage per person was to go to these volunteer firefighters? I would submit to you that there's not a person in this community that would flinch for a moment to help these individuals, especially those who have had them show up at their house when they've had a fire, or even when their alarm went off and it was false.
Yeah, I understand your opinion. I'm still curious on the community's opinions.
Yeah, I would not even speculate. I would tell you that I'd be curious if you could find one individual who would object to it.
Do we have any other questions or comments? No. Thank you very much, Mr.
All right,
Bernheim. Oh,
I'd just like to expand on my perspective here a little bit. Are there questions, or you want me to hold on that?
I was just going to let him sit down.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you once again. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So if the board has any comments or thoughts that you'd like to share.
Yeah. I just want to put out the questions. I very much, first of all, support the fire company. In the budgetary conversation we're having, all of these inputs have outputs that impact the entirety of the budget. And so understanding the long-term impacts of voting for this and how community would perceive it is important to me in thinking about this vote in particular.
I appreciate that. Any other? So similar to the conversation around the PA 100, the low-income seniors rebate, I feel very strongly personally that this is something that should be, if we were to move forward, it's something that where we should start sort of at a smaller level and then ramp up. I appreciate that the township and Narberth Borough currently are at 100%, but also appreciate that when the program started, it was at a smaller amount, and it gives time to sort of review the program. Unlike the senior and the other program, there isn't an existing, well, I take that. I'm going to strike that comment. But I do think that it's something that I would consider, but acknowledging that it is in reality a regressive program. It's not a, it's a regressive tax rebate, sort of the opposite. And so I would recommend, if we were to start this, to do this similar to what Neshaminy did, to say we will start at a specific refund number rather than doing a full percentage of refund. And that way, for those folks, that it would make the most impact, that they would have, that they would receive that amount. And then, if others want to chime in.
Yeah, and it's similarly to the other rebate being considered. I think having something that's modest, either a fixed number or a modest, much modest percentage that we can scale over time and look at what the impacts are would be favorable for me.
I mean, if we're looking sort of at overall scope, if we're talking about looking at the PA State Property Tax Rent Rebate Program, at even if that were to be implemented at the full amount, it's still about half of what this amount would be. This full rebate here would be close to $400,000 in its first year. So I think that that's a fairly large impact to our budget to be sort of implemented all at once. Ms. Schaffmeister?
Yeah, I would agree with you in that. I support both, but I think we need to be consider the impact at this time in the budget. But you made a point about the other. Will we work with the township? Would the township administratively handle this to give us the numbers for this? Yeah.
That's correct. For the firefighters, the township would make the determination and provide us the names. Borough.
Township or borough, right. Because if we were to do this, we couldn't just, we would do for both.
To provide it to us.
All right, well, thank you very much to Commissioner Bernheim, to my colleagues for sort of thinking through this. And this is not something that is being voted on this evening. It was just, as we work towards a final budget, this is something that to be considered and to look at the ramifications of what that would, the impact on our budget. Mr. Roos?
Sure. To be clear, what is on the agenda, though, which is required by law, before you could even enact such a resolution, you have to give the public 30 days notice. So there has to be an advertisement put in the paper. And before you could enact the resolution, you also need to have a public hearing. So what's on the agenda tonight is an advertisement for possibility of the district enacting a tax credit in some form for first responders, and also scheduling a hearing, public hearing for June 12th, I believe. I believe 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
I think it was 7.
7 o'clock, 7 PM. It's on the agenda. But that's the only thing that's on the agenda tonight about this, or about either the credit for the firefighters or the rebate for seniors.
Thank you for the clarification, and also to note that, so by having that hearing, we're not saying, yes, we are doing it. We're saying that we are taking the steps that would be necessary to implement that, should we decide to move forward with it.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the end of our multiple presentations for the evening. We will move on to our committee meeting reports. Ms. Simmons had already done her report from Harrington High School. We just had a long presentation on the Finance Committee meeting, so I don't think we need to do an actual Finance Committee meeting report. We have the May 3rd Equity and Anti-Racism Committee meeting report. Mr. Mooring?
Thank you. So the Equity Anti-Racism Committee meeting was held May 3rd. Ms. James Coles opened the meeting, and the focus of that particular meeting was on community and student voice, where we focused on a presentation that looked at how we build an emotionally supportive environment and disrupt negativity bias was the focus for the evening, and how do we build community together. Negativity bias was defined as when we use negative language rather than positive, defining negativity bias and how it is treated within our educational system. Explored opportunities for how we reset our hardwiring that focuses on the negative, and that we also, and one way to approach it is to give grace and put values on our humanity to make a difference. Some of the responses to bias incidents, Ms. Schaefer talked about some of the issues that we've been dealing with in the district, noting that we wanted to make sure that we are helping families, and that we're defining bias and being transparent in our approaches to issues such as zero tolerance, and how that's really spelled out within the district. Ms. Schaefer also shared ways that persons in the community can report concerns and issues. We reviewed the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, noting that by law, the district has to protect information about students, and we detailed a walkthrough of that process in terms of how we address major issues that are occurring within the district, as well as we walk through a hypothetical situation and how we enact in terms of both reporting and communication. We also heard from Dr. Gaudioso around professional development within the district, noting that there are, every year, there are 2 hours of growth sessions that are implemented by Sage Wellness, our consultant. Also reviews for restorative practices. And we talked about the need for additional trainings and how the administration uses those trainings. We had a brief update on recruitment in terms of how students both see themselves. This was a update on the equity study that was done, and we heard in the categories were recruitment, where we talked about how students see themselves, networking and recruitment, the new website that is up for updated for hiring, as well as HR updated hiring guide in the hiring process. We heard about student voice and what it is and how it's connected for student agency, how students are able to express themselves. We also talked about some highlights and growth opportunities through our breakout groups, as well as issues around growth. And we also reflected on a leadership summit where issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion were explored with students, and we heard a report out from those students around ways in which they were dealing with issues of equity and inclusion. They talked about having a trusted adult, and some of the things that they really took away from their experience during that summit was the appreciation of having trusted adults, social events and connections, opportunities to be themselves in a trusted and safe environment, the access to clubs, as well as transparency of adults in the school system, and more positive engagement from teachers in student behaviors. And that concluded our meeting.
Thank you very much. And for the curriculum committee meeting?
Yep, I'm going to do that.
Mr. Mooring again.
Yes, so CCOB meeting began with a review of the following contracts and renewals and recommending them for approval by the full board. They included Brain Pop for K through 8, Pear Deck for K through 12, Goodhart Wilcox for digital access to health textbooks, and the School Mint for grades 9 through 12. We reviewed and recommended a contract with MCIU to review LMSD's language instruction and education programs for our ELD community. There will be a report on this in the fall of 2024. A school-age community member provided important feedback on LMSD's autistic social skills curriculum. The main takeaways included that we should be teaching masking instead of a focus on functioning and autistic society in an autistic society as an autistic person. Teaching staff self-advocacy sooner, and teaching not only included learning to make friends, but also maintain friendships. The CCOB really appreciated the presentation and feedback and will absolutely consider those points moving forward. We also then heard a presentation on the integrative block and new specials being offered at the middle schools, and the contract renewals we spoke about. Sophie Baseman gave feedback on LMSD's social skills curriculum, including unexpected versus non-neurotypical. Let's talk about that. Sorry, I'm reading someone else's notes, so I'm just getting caught up. Let's see, and we talked about the 7 humanities specials, 5th grade study skills to focus on executive functioning, test taking, study tips and taking notes, 6th grade presentations and lots of collaborative skills, 7th and 8th, communications, public speaking, and diverse lenses. Those were the main topics that we discussed. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mooring. Ms. Shurak, if you could please do the policy committee report.
Sure thing. So the policy committee met on May 5th. We reviewed for proposed adoption policy AR 235 and 236, which were incorporated together. We took a deep dive into administrative regulations and really looking at the restrictions on the use of electronic devices, and had a robust discussion about the reality of the use of student devices in our schools, the various needs and the various ways in which they can be challenging. And so we will continue to review those ARs, but there is some urgency for us through the end of the year. We updated the language so that the schools can finalize their handbooks, but we'll continue to actually review the language and the policies in AR in our meeting in September. We heard from community members that were also weighing in on the use of electronic devices and the reality specifically of their student experience at the high school. And we have a proposal as a result of that discussion to also have a subcommittee on the Wellness Committee so that there's representation of each level within the Wellness Committee and really thinking of the different implications of the technology policy from elementary schools through high schools. The AR, as we landed, does support the use of restrictions. For now, we added language to also protect our students with 504 and IEP accommodations for the use of technology, and administration is committed to really thinking through how that manifests in teachers and school administrators, ensuring that students are following the policies as they've been written. I'm very pleased to share the student wellness policy and our updates. Our previous policy was quite outdated and based very much on nutrition and student activity needs, which are quite important. And also, we are pleased to now have updated the policy in our district and to really be a front runner in the country about what we believe student wellness in alignment with our strategic plan, vision, mission, and commitment to anti-racism and equity really looks like. So our next steps is to continue to work with the subcommittee to meet more, define student wellness, and then have multiple committees and involve the entire community on the subcommittees within the Wellness Committee, because wellness encompasses quite a bit. We then had a discussion also about policy 004, and a first reading of P153 went to the second reading, which expands really the ability of the board to make revisions as long as the changes don't go against the spirit of the policy, which it sounds kind of archaic, but a lot of the ways that we have to do the process sometimes can hold up our ability to move work forward. And so this will just streamline some of it while also still giving administration, the board, and the community the ability to weigh in. And so Ken, under his advisement, is going to go ahead and make that change. We're also still working on our project with board docs. So we there's a lot of back-end stuff with board docs, I have to tell you, on the website and accessibility that Amy has been working with her team to make sure we get going, and then Denise and LaToya have been integrating as best as we can and updating as we go. And so we'll continue to do that work and keep everyone focused or updated. For future discussion, we'll have continued discussion around the timing of board meetings and our committee meetings. And we will also be looking at our busing policy and developing our agendas for the fall. Our next official policy meeting is September 8th, and we, of course, will still be doing work on policies up until then. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Chirac. And for our last committee report, everyone's favorite, facilities and purchasing.
I'll read fast. We met on the Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting on May 11th at 8:30 a.m. The discussions and recommendations from this meeting include the following from the agenda.
We recommend approval of the list of bills from the district covering April 12th to May 9th, 2023. We reviewed the following purchase report items and we recommend for approval: $242,107.36 to IT Security Solutions to replace security cameras at District Administration Building, LMH, Lower Merion High School, Harriton High School, Bella Cynwyd Middle School, Welsh Valley Middle School, and this is under CoStar procurement pricing from the state for, $227,000 of these dollars are funded by a grant from PCCD, the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. We were also recommended $91,542 to FW Web Company to repair the smoke stack at Penwyn Elementary School under another CoStar procurement pricing. The stack is functional, but notice some condensate building on it. $85,200 to Tri-M to install and integrate Andover controls at Cynwyd Elementary School. Based pricing is from Tri-M as a proprietary service provider. This is the first of 5 projects planned, and Cynwyd is being prioritized because it's the largest and most critical. $10,995 to Hotsy Equipment Company for electric hot water pressure washer for the Transportation Department. This replaces a diesel one that is nearing the end of life and also will have less impact on the environment with being electric. A bid from World Fuel Services, Inc., based on their fixed prices for school year 23-24. That's 75,000 gallons of biodiesel at 2.7640 per gallon and 55,000 gallons of gasoline at 2.475 per gallon. This bid rises from a cooperative pricing of Montgomery County Intermediate Unit that was board approved on March 29th. The unit pricing came down from the prior year. We reviewed the following district contracts that were also reviewed at the curriculum committee and recommend them for approval. Renewal of the Pear Deck contract for $23,454.75. Renewal of the Brain Prop contract for $28,014.48, covering the period of October 8th, 23 to October 7th, 24. Renewal of the Goodhart Wilcox Publisher contract for $11,997. And that's just requested for another year because they are planning to update the textbook. Renewal of the School Med Inc. contract for $10,258.71 for the school year 23-24. And this is a school-wide tardy tracking system. Software for secondary schools district-wide, and entering into agreement with MCIU for $15,975 to perform a language instruction education program review. This includes surveys, data collection, review process. The outcome will be a late fall report, and it's paid through our title grant. We recommended to enter into a 3-year renewal agreement for IM Pools Management, swimming pools, with the swimming pool service agreement with pricing from October 1, 23 to August 31st, 2026. Pricing includes a base cost of $46,140 per year of the agreement with an agreed upon schedule of additional services needed. IM Pool Management has been maintaining LMHS pools and supporting pool activities with a good working relationship. They also maintain pools in nearby districts for similar rates. We recommend a 2-year renewal of CM Regent Employee Life and AD&D policy with rates effective for 7/1/23 to 6/30/25. Rates are the same as the prior agreement. Recommend approval of the Power School Unified Talent Perform quote for $10,062 and records quote for $16,312.97. This renews the subscription of the Human Resources products for 1 year through 6/30/24, and there's a records for onboarding new hires and and it performs evaluations. We can approve the Silvereye Technology printer software renewal for $15,747. This renews the subscription for 1 year through 6/30/24. This allows Macs to print through the Microsoft Windows system. We recommend approval of the Optiv Core Light quote for $15,963.86. It renews the subscription for 1 year through 18/24. Correlate subscription gives us software updates and supports us to allow us to continue to monitor our internal logs via our Elastic Stick, identifies network traffic, and if there should be an event. We recommend approval of the E+ quote for consulting services from July 1, 2023 to June 30th,
2024. ePlus will provide consulting services and resources when needed for on-site remote support based upon scheduled rates and quotes, a $15,000 retainer for the services, and it may be refunded upon a written request. It allows immediate help should an event arise. We recommend approval of Presidio Network Solutions quotes for Presidio Cisco collaboration upgrade in the amount of $62,500 and a Cisco wireless refresh in the amount of $25,000. Approval is subject to solicitor review and renewal of the URL filtering add-on subscription for the district's Palo Alto firewall. Palo Alto renewal service allows us to filter inappropriate malicious sites and maintaining ongoing threat prevention. Presidio Cisco collaboration upgrade will provide professional service to assist the information systems department's upgrade and the existing voice over IP phone system. The current voice over IP phone system will no longer be supported by the manufacturer as of May 31st, 2024. Presidio is providing professional services to assist members on the Information Systems Department to replace existing wireless network equipment that as of 1/31/23 is no longer eligible for software updates and is out of warranty. Recommend approval of the Renewing Remind annual subscription for $32,485. This approval is subject to solicitor review. Remind is a mobile phone application and website that permits communication using personal devices between adults such as coaches, club member moderators, and teachers and students without revealing the phone number of the mobile devices. It's used for team, club, school, and district-wide messaging to parent, employee, and student personally owned phones. And it also archives conversations. We recommend approval of Robert Half customer agreement for IT services for a one-year term from the data fully executed. The agreement is fully executed for $28,800. This is also subject to solicitor review. It's outsourcing IT help for the summer to perform mostly basic technician duties such as repairing duties, reinstalling software, and troubleshooting common issues. Technicians will not have access to confidential or sensitive data nor access to critical services and resources. We also, a section was added to our agenda, that an Apple quote that we approved last month for $1,706,650.75. We request to rescind, approving this month the lower quote from Apple for $1,691,587.50. This brings us to the Black Rock Middle School change orders, which include $8,468.49 to IMC. This amount represents resolving 11 change orders of both IMC and district claims. These include both charges and credits to the district with resulting balance. A full list of these change orders are under the Facilities and Operations section, item L, on the meeting's agenda. The other change order is $5,183.05 to Vision Plumbing for the cost of modifying, purchasing material, and installing temporary sinks in the science room. Black Rock Middle School work includes installing acid sinks in the science room by early summer 23, track coating by June 23, working on the lighting control system integrations with Siemens system, which is ongoing, and a punch list of work is cone. The change orders to date for this project are now totaling $5,165,671. 90% of these change orders result from four main causes: 42% additional work related to soil excavation and site preparation, 21,000 omissions or errors made by professionals and sub-consultants related to building design, 17% omissions or errors made by the architectural firm in the building design, 10% requested by Lmsb. There are now 2,024,494 in claims made by contractors, $457,076 in claims made by Lmsb. This amount has changed due to two reasons: resolving some claims through mediation with IMC, a new claim from Vision for $99,975. Including all disputed claims, the total project cost for Black Rock Middle School is now $106,665,124, which is higher than the original projected cost, but at the time the contract was awarded, but is less than the original construction estimates. Community comments of the meeting include a request to measure indoor quality by a third party and also improve indoor air quality. We had numerous community members, including both a former and a current student, speak on Oakwell. These comments included requests to support student endeavors to incorporate education spaces at Oakwell and work with other institutions. For status on the current plans for Oakwell and historical structure impact, as well as to work with students on possible solutions, and to listen to students considering that there is no perfect answer for fields, but think about alternatives for the student experience. So our next facilities and purchasing meeting will be held on June 5th at 8:30 a.m. in this same room. If you want more details about these things I mentioned, you can go to that agenda for that day. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schaffmeister. Always a long one, but important to be very transparent and clear about the facilities and purchasing work that our district is doing. Moving on our agenda, we do not have any additional agenda items to add on this evening, so it is now time for audience recognition. At this time, we will hear public comment. If you would like to speak at tonight's meeting and have not yet signed up with Ms. LaPera, please do so now. For those of you joining us via the webinar, the chat feature will now be open and you will see a 10-minute timer appear on your screen. You can submit your comments and/or questions via the chat feature. Both via chat and in person, please be sure to begin with your full name and where you reside within the district in order for your comment to be shared. It's important not to just, you can do name and neighborhood, it does not need to be specific address. Ms. LaPera, can you start the process for in-person comments for tonight's meeting, please?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Bahar, Jared Gordon, Gabriel Montoya, and then Morton Klein.
David Behar, Penn Valley. I'm here to really address Ken. I consider this board to be woke. Woke is the stale criticism of Mao Zedong of the United States from 1963. And I want to give you some random facts. One, a 7th grade teacher gave a puff of a vape pen to a student and was arrested for child endangerment. 2, Chinese students study from the 4th grade on. They study from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And they're not studying by rote. They're studying creative problem solving. And 3rd, the Catholic Church paid out billions of dollars for covering up sex abuse and sex, just for covering up. They did not have that as a formal policy of the church, the way that this government agency has that, in grooming children, in sexualizing children. And what I'm saying, Ken, is playtime is over. You can expect a federal lawsuit. It's going to be billions. And I have personal standing as if I were a child victim. We will also be asking for exemplary damages, which are usually triple. So you should be put on notice for that, Ken. You should talk to these people here and explain what they're facing. Thank you. I'm adding anti-Semitism as well as a hostile educational environment of anti-Semitism in here, which is in accordance with your woke philosophy.
Mr. Gordon, Gabriel Montoya, Morton Klein.
I'm suing you personally. I'm naming each one of you personally. You should lawyer up.
Thank you, Mr. Behar. We have Jared Gordon next.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jared Gordon. I'm a resident of Bala-Cynwyd. I rise this evening to speak about concerns, community concerns about anti-Semitism, specifically anti-Semitic events that have happened at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School and at a recent event by which Gladwin Elementary has been advertised as building belonging at an HSA event, a recent HSA event. Tolerance of anti-Semitism, just like tolerance of any kinds of hate, in this day and age where we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, is in fact intolerable. I rise to ask 3 things of this body. One is to establish a subcommittee or task force to study causes, impacts, and incidents of anti-Semitism in the Lower Merion School District and recommend actions to this body. 2, to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, along with the illustrations of how contemporary anti-Semitism presents itself, and to take action to embed this definition into curriculum and Lmsd policy. And third, to ensure that lay leaders and Lmsd professionals attend training and adopt actions to ensure hate speech and imagery of anti-Semitism does not find its way into the Lmsd program of any kind, whether sponsored by an HSA, this body, or the school district directly. In a time where this body is focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, these specific acts are designed to ensure that our Jewish children can feel safe and can bring their authentic selves to school in this district every day. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance is the only intergovernmental organization mandated to focus solely on Holocaust-related issues, so with evidence that the source of anti-Semitism is once again on the rise, it is important to ground our discussion of the events at Gladwin Elementary in particular within the confines of this definition. The presentation of the flag of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, whose sole goal is to eliminate the state of Israel and the Jewish people, is basically calling for aiding or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology of an extremist view, and denying the Jewish people the right to self-determination, delegitimizing the existence of the state of Israel. The presentation of Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine rather than the internationally recognized capital of another country, Israel, denies Israel's existence, denying the Jewish people a claim to our ancestral homeland, denying or delegitimizes Israel's view in the world. And celebrating a poet's poetry of Muhammad Asaf is an act of anti-Semitism. He writes of annihilating Israel when he writes, "My land is from river to sea." Asaf calls for Jews to be wiped out of Palestine and replaced with Arabs, only Palestinian Arabs. He encouraged the replacement of Israel of Jewish inhabitants on racist grounds, and this should not be tolerated.
Thank you.
Gabriel Montoya, Warren Klein, Leroy Pardon, and then Neil Cooper.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Montoya. I live in Villanova. Nice to meet you all. I'm here to talk about Oakville. We're new members of this community. We moved here a year ago from Miami, Florida. And we've been here very happy for a year. We came here not for work reasons or for relocation. We came here by choice. My wife is an economic development attorney, and we look at many places where we wanted to relocate our family. And we chose here for many, many reasons. But the main ones were the natural beauty of this place, the deep and rich historical heritage, and the fact that this is a very stable, very steady, well-rooted community, which is not going through the demographic explosion that we have seen in South Florida. So as neighbors of Oakville, of course, we became curious of what was happening with that property, and we started investigating, and actually we were very surprised to learn that this beautiful and very large mature woodland and historical property is going to be replaced by a decision of this board with some sports fields, some sports facilities. I mean, we think that those are the main attributes of this area, and they're going to be displaced or destroyed. We have looked at a lot of data when we moved here. We analyzed why we wanted to be here, and we couldn't find any arguments that, you know, the community is growing and that there's a real need for these facilities. We commute through the County Line Road every day, and we're very concerned about the increased traffic and chaos that this is gonna bring to us, to all those who live in the community. And finally, we think we've researched and talked to people, and we think there's alternatives to how to handle this and how to provide, you know, this access to facilities somewhere else without having to harm the irreplaceable assets of this community. We have talked to a lot of people, friends, neighbors, and I think most of these people feel the same way. We do not want, you know, we do not want these baseball fields and parking lots. We don't want more traffic and pollution. We think this is an unnecessary development in our neighborhood. And, you know, there's not a lot of awareness about this. A lot of people don't know what's going on. So I'm here speaking on behalf of a lot of people, and we intend to continue to do this. As part of our research, on this matter. We also met with several people, including the previous owner of the property. We learned about issues that were mentioned here about, tax lawsuits and settlements and increases. And we also learned about how this property was acquired, the citing eminent domain, and the way, it was funded. And honestly, we're new here, and with all due respect, all these things are concerning. I mean, we would like to shed more light on these issues and bring more attention to the community about what has happened here. What I would like is to encourage the board to think about changing course and consider other alternatives of use, such as the Villanova University proposal. Let's save Oakville.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Klein and Leroy, I think it's Cardon, Neil Cooper, Betsy Redz.
Good evening. My name is Morton Klein. I live in Marion for 42 years. My daughter graduated Lower Marion High School. I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. The mission of education here in Lower Marion and elsewhere should be promoting truth, not promoting lies, hatred, and worse. Title VI, the U.S. law, does not permit a hostile environment in schools. In this last display at Gladwin Elementary School of Palestine, promoting Palestine as a country. It is not a country, it was a region. No Palestinian kings or queens. And Jerusalem as the capital, when, of course, the United States recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel in 1995. By having this display of Palestine, this elementary school is promoting a terrorist dictatorship which pays Arabs to murder Jews, pays lifetime pensions to murder Jews, which names schools, streets, and sports teams after Jew killers, which publicly preaches that no Jew will be allowed in a future state of Palestine. And I simply am saying to you that this regime that's being promoted has this as their emblem, a shape of all of Israel with a kafir over it, all of Israel. Arafat, the terrorist, and a Kalashnikov rifle. I'm asking you, urging you, as a child of Holocaust survivors who lost most of my family to Hitler, which began, by the way, with lies and hatred against Jewish people. In an era of rising anti-Semitism and physical attacks against Jews, I am urging you to have Gladwin Elementary School publicly apologize and retract this display and pledge to consult with ZOA and Muslim groups before anything is promoted from the Middle East. Thank you very, very much.
Good evening. Sir, before you speak, I'd like to just respond to the last comment, please. So if you'll allow me just a few minutes. I want to acknowledge that I believe a lot of you in the room because of some of the concerns that were just expressed. And we know that there are community members who were deeply offended that a family displayed a Palestinian flag at a recent elementary school cultural heritage night. Because of that, we know that we need to be sensitive to those concerns, and for that reason, we have reached out for some assistance in this matter. And to help us better navigate the issues like this in the future, we have reached out to 2 local universities, the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Community Relations Council, and religious leaders for their guidance.
Please, everybody's been given a chance to speak. This board listened to what you...
Be quiet.
Excuse me. We expect civility in our meetings. That's inappropriate. And I will reiterate what Mr. Roos is saying. We offer the opportunity for everyone to speak. We ask for civility. If you have signed up to speak, you will have the opportunity to do so. But I ask that you be respectful of Ms. Schaefer. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to provide a little more context for those that might also be joining us here today and not knowing what the event was, Cultural Heritage Nights are sponsored by many of our elementary school, home and school associations, and are part of our overall work in the district to celebrate diversity and create a sense of belonging for all students. Families in our district come from many different cultures and backgrounds, each with a unique history. At Cultural Heritage Nights, families share aspects of their culture, such as traditional food, form of dress, craft, or music, with other families from their children's school community in a manner that is appropriate for students in grades K to 4 to take part. We know that in this instance that flags can prompt emotional reactions, but the intent of these events was to share culture and not for kindergartners to fourth graders to delve into past or ongoing geopolitical issues. The guidance that we offered to home and school associations for these events is that any entity that was recognized or is recognized by the United Nations may be represented. Palestine has UN observer nation status. Therefore, the family whose cultural heritage is Palestinian was welcome to participate. Again, I reiterate, we are partnering with organizations to support our work moving forward because, as another speaker mentioned, it's not, there was incidents that we've referenced, that we've shared letters about at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School, the rise in anti-Semitism. We are not denying that that's a fact, and we need to continue to work to make sure that we're addressing those instances in our school, and we will continue to take that path forward. You know, again, with their help and guidance, we will work to continue to build the belonging and understanding that's critical for our students in this ever-changing world, and focusing on what we do have in common rather than our differences. So we acknowledge your comments here tonight, and we wanted to share that context and the intent of the event. And you know, again, we are partnering to move forward with better understanding, and look forward to your partnership in that as well.
Stop supporting genocide.
If you have a comment to make, you make it at the microphone. You sign up and you make it at the microphone, if you were a resident. Or a taxpayer.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Leroy Carden from Marion, graduate of Marion Schools, and also my son was a graduate. In light of what's been said, I'll only say two things about what we've talked about with the Gladwin situation. Number one, I would ask that the ZOA Zionist organization be included in any discussion. We are the oldest organization in this country to be advocating for Israel and American relationships. It's what we do. We're passionate about it. A lot of the people here are from ZOA, and we just like the opportunity to sit down and talk with you. And number two, I think a lot of people don't understand something very critical about this situation. There is no state of Palestine, not because of Israel. It's because 3 times since 2000, Israel has made an offer of statehood to the Palestinians, and 3 times they turned it down for one reason. They did not want to give up their armed struggle against Israel. And they not only want to kill Jews in Israel, they want to kill Jews here. So that is why we're very sensitive to this issue and would like to be included. And again, thank you for your consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Neil Cooper, Betsy Rentz, James McLaughlin, and then Carol Burgeon.
Hi, my name is Neil Cooper. I'm the Rabbi Emeritus from Temple Beth Hillel Bethel. I'm a resident of Wynwood for more than 31 years. And I'm also a citizen of the United States of America and a citizen of the State of Israel. I also would like to just thank you, without knowing that this board has asked for the assistance of others in dealing with the situation, particularly at the Gladwin Elementary School. I'm heartened to know that. I would like to say that from my perspective, and I don't represent any organization, But I would like to say that from my perspective as a leader of the Jewish community, that this Heritage Night has done not only a disservice to the Jewish community, I think it's done a disservice to the Lower Merion community in general, and quite frankly, to the Palestinian community. When you described what a Heritage Night should be, it should be about the clothes, it should be about the dress and the food and the celebrations, the customs, all of those good things, which quite frankly, we don't know a lot about because we don't hear about them. Instead, what has been portrayed as Palestinian is the most radical of the political philosophies, which has nothing to do with Palestinian heritage per se. It's all about hating Jews and about hating Israel. I don't think we need to go into to prove to this group that that is not within the spirit or the intent of a Heritage Night. And so I think that in the future, what I would like to see is, first of all, an apology not only to the Jewish community, but to the entire Lower Merion community for an event which failed rather than inspire understanding. It really incited hostility. And you feel that here, and a tremendous degree of defensiveness. And secondly, I think that we need to hear and work together with the community when these things come up, so that these kinds of conflicts do not happen in the future. We want all children, as the stated intent of Lower Merion schools, to be an inclusive place. Inclusive means not only that Palestinians feel included, but Jews need to feel included, and our needs need to be understood. And so I hope that those will be taken into consideration the next time. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Betsy.
My name is Betsy Rance. I'm the class of 1971 of Lower Merion High School. I went to Bala Cynwyd Middle School at a time when Principal George Kirkpatrick was there. It was in the late 60s. And at that time, the schools were not closed for the Jewish holidays. Principal Kirkpatrick would call an assembly and have all of us stand there at attention at our seats and tell us that the Jews better not be standing on the streets and had to be in synagogue. And he will be driving around on the streets of Bala Cynwyd and Merion and the school district to make sure that we were in synagogue. If he found any of us not on the streets, he would suspend us. And that was the kind of anti-Semitism that I had to put up with when I went to Bala Cynwyd Middle School. I am so happy that we have come a long way since then. But right now, I think that the Lower Merion curriculum in teaching Middle East studies is lacking. I'm really glad that you're going to be attacking this and addressing this. I urge you to contact other organizations, ZOA, Stand With Us, APAC, who are far better than the other organizations that you have mentioned that you're going to be contacting. I urge you, and I would be happy to serve on a committee, to talk about reframing your curriculum, to teach more sensitivity to what this does to us as Jews. It is our ancient homeland, Israel. And other people have mentioned this, according to the executive order that was passed, number 13899, on combating anti-Semitism, it embraces denigrating Israel, as well as the definition that was embraced by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which the United States embraces. It's not about Jews. It's about denigrating the homeland of somebody, of a group of people. That is Israel. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
James McLaughlin, Carol Burgeon, Holly Manzoni.
Yes, good evening. My name is James McLaughlin. I live on Loves Lane here in Wynwood. I just, after some of the presentations I've heard, my comments are going to be very pedestrian. And I have to say that I agree with every single thing that's been said here. And thank you for your courage for coming. First of all, why in your proposed final budget did you say you weren't raising taxes? Because the no box is checked. And I think I saw a slide that said their average increase would be $298 per household. Second of all, with respect to the Wolk settlement, are the taxpayers getting a check this year, and is it reflected in the budget? 3, we're getting a new superintendent soon, and as far as the budget, I think it would be far better if we got our financial house in order. If we sell Oakwell, we won't need a tax increase at all, and we can focus on education. And I certainly agree with the gentleman before about Oakwell. I think it's a disaster, just in a public relations disaster for the district. And I drive by every Friday afternoon and see the Save Oakwell signs, and which I think is a protest against the needless expenditures of the district. And this is a testimony to conservation of natural resources and economic resources. And I think people want it preserved, and it's not a good PR image for you. It's really not. And finally, I'd like to say, with respect to my Jewish friends here, I had no idea this issue was coming up today. And I also would like to question, in terms of Middle East studies, if it's been infused with a boycott, divestment, and sanctions mentality, which really just tries to pillory Israel and avoid any kind of economic investment in Israel. So if it's woke, I'm against it. I'm against the anti-Israeli and anti-American sentiment.
Thank you.
Good evening. I too would like to apologize that I am, my name's Carol Bergen, I'm from Rosemont. I too would like to apologize that I'm seemingly talking about something mundane, and that is Oakwell ultimately. Here's what we know. Talk of healthy start time was screeched to a halt just very recently, even after years of evidence-based research showing us that there was a need to change start times. Full-day kindergarten, and with some aspect of childcare associated with it, was also delayed until another year. Educators affected by these changes really need voice and choice. We've heard the appeals for adequate number of educators tonight, and they need to be compensated for salary-wise and benefits. Money can solve many of these barriers. We all know where money has been sitting since 2019. We know that the taxpayers will receive money back as part of the settlement for the Wolk case, a problem that should not have happened. What are potential sources of money? We all know clearly there's one big potential source of money, and that happens to be selling Oakwell. The money has sat since I think it's 2019, paid to Oakwell, earning no interest, just sitting there. That is real money. Additionally, what we should be considering are looking at local colleges, universities like Rosemont, Cabrini, Eastern University, offering these people a substantial treat to be used for fields for the Black Rock Middle School. And I don't just mean money to mow the lawn, but make it a tempting offer so that it's a legitimately close place to Black Rock, and that the person, the university receiving the compensation feels respected with the offer. Finally, the bus drivers probably need an increased boost in pay. I know you've decided to give them some compensation for training that is required. But we would like the bus drivers to be committed to this school system. And money and compensations are the things that will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Holly Manzoni, then Francine Lipstein, Elena Fishbein, and then Bob Lipstein.
Good evening, Holly Manzoni, Wynwood. A gentleman was just speaking a few minutes ago, and he had mentioned your public relations. This is your public relations. You send these little newsletters out every now and then, and I was delighted to see under the update on playing fields that you recognize us. You mentioned that some opposition to the Fields plan has developed. I'm so glad you noticed. I mean, we've been out on Montgomery Avenue every week for an hour with our signs for the past 15 months saying honk to save the trees. And I don't know if you're ever out there, but it's a lot of fun. We get a lot of honking out there. So I'm glad to hear that some opposition has developed. It's also interesting to me that for a couple of years, I've been coming to these school board meetings, and I don't think there's been any single topic that is more regularly represented at these meetings. Can any of you remember one when nobody spoke up to support Oakwell? So, yeah, I'm glad you noticed that. There were a couple other things in here. You did talk about the growing school enrollment. I was a little surprised, given that you had the enrollment study last March that said you were declining. Then you had the other enrollment study in November, we haven't really talked about much, that said, well, maybe you're growing just a little. So I'm not sure where you're getting the growing school enrollment. There was another thing in here that troubles me, because this has come up before, where you mentioned that when the Black Rock project began, the school district acquired 2 residential properties that were, quote, offered for sale. Well, that's not true. You know that. Acorn Cottage was never put on the market, and Oakwell itself had a private arrangement with the head of Villanova University, who the then owner of Oakwell was good friends with. It was never listed for sale. So I think that what you're saying here is misleading. And I hope that you will consider this a little bit more, because as you can see, the community isn't delighted with some of the things you're doing. And I think if you could work more with us, then maybe we could avoid situations like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manzoni.
Good evening. My name is Francine Lipstein. I live in Marion, and I'm here to discuss the situation with DEI in Lower Marion, and specifically what's going on with the Jewish community. I am the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I am very triggered by all of this talk. What would you do if somebody came in with a Nazi flag? Would you have allowed them to continue, or would you have insisted that they bring that down? Because to me, the Palestinian flag that wants to murder my children and my family is the same thing as a neo-Nazi swastika. And I need you to understand that that's what we're up against here. I also feel very, very strongly, and my mother came here as an orphan after being in Auschwitz, and she said, the beauty of this country is that we are not victims, that we teach our children, and my daughter said to me, she took a class on DEI, she said, Mommy, you never taught me to be a victim. You taught me that if I work hard and I get educated, I can be anything in this world. What are we doing to our children if we teach them that if that they are not equal and that they are victims? We have to teach them that they, with education, can do anything and be anything. That's the America that I want my children and grandchildren to grow up in. Please consider my words.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, excuse me, sir. Elena, is that her? She might not, yeah, it's Elena, and then it's you.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ilana Fishbein, and I live in Gladwin. Three of my children, at one time or another, went to Gladwin Elementary School. I'm very familiar personally with this cultural night. I participated, and we loved it very much. Back in those days, Cultural Heritage Night was an event where children and their parents manned tables to share delicious food, colorful clothing, traditional custom, and facts about their native heritage. It was a joyful event and a chance for young students to learn about the diversity of Gladwin community, which is an incredible. Shamefully, the school leadership has taken its eyes off the ball. In the most recent Cultural Heritage Night, as we already heard from several representatives here, they provided a platform for an entity that promotes the destruction of the State of Israel. I'm also a citizen of Israel and a citizen of America, and this issue is very close to my heart. The table, of course, we are talking about the display of Palestine. While I don't take exception to the inclusion of a table at this event for any culturally proud Palestinian neighbors to educate our community about their delicious food, colorful clothing, and traditional custom, I do take exception to their using this occasion to spread political propaganda and lies, and I and many in our community find patently offensive. Many of them are here, and many did not make it, but we definitely represent their voices here. You have been informed in writing more than once about this problem. First, the first step that you can do, based even on some of the comments that you said here, go to your website and remove the word country from Palestine. There is no Palestine. There never was a Palestine. So please, if you're really truthful and sincere about what you are professing here, remove the word country from Palestine. Second, the display asserted that Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine. It is not and never was. Rather, it is the internal capital of Israel and the Jewish people. The display asserted that Israel town Rameh, about 20 miles off Tiberias, is in Palestine. It is not. The display featured a Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO flag, a political symbol for an entity that pays terrorists to murder Jews, and yes, quite a few Americans as well. The fact is that the PLO, as well as many organizations in the Palestinian-controlled area, have loudly voiced their commitment to the destruction of Israel and killing Jews indiscriminately. They have been using their own children as human shields and encourage them to become murderers. Therefore, not surprisingly, the display included praises for a singer who in turn has praised.
Ma'am, your time is up. We have a roll.
Yes, I think so.
Your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Your time is up. Thank you very much.
She can have a minute of my time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's a community spirit. That's a community spirit.
Ma'am, if your comments are in writing, you can hand them to the person after you.
No, I would like to read them.
But that's, your 3 minutes is up.
Our policy is 3 minutes. Okay. Our policy is 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Sir, please.
Excuse me, sir.
Listen to you.
Very disrespectful when some of us have been presenting. You have been laughing and talking to each other. This is very disrespectful to the audience.
This board has been extremely respectful to everybody. Please extend the same courtesy to you.
You have been laughing and talking.
All right. Why don't you take I think you need a recess.
Yes.
I'm Bob Lipstein. I live in Marion Station.
I'm going to continue where you cut her off. Therefore, not surprisingly, the display included praise for a singer who in turn has praised the murder of Jews and endorsed the destruction of Israel. Reprehensible. You need to tell the kids the truth, the facts. The irony here is that this school district that is so heavily preoccupied with the inclusivity of LGBTQ has provided a forum for a political entity that murders any Jew and LGBTQ people, even their own.
That's right.
It is not enough that the Palestinians are indoctrinating their own children, encouraging them to become martyrs and celebrate death. Now you are facilitating a platform for them to indoctrinate our children. Next time, you should stick to keeping politics out of it. But for the record, my comment. You interrupted the flow of speakers here today. And when you said that everybody will have the right to speak, and then you interrupted by saying what you thought the solution was before everybody had that opportunity to speak. That comes across as defensive, and it means that your solution, which you already planned, is incomplete. And I, for one, am personally insulted with how you insulted us by interrupting us and jumping to a conclusion before you heard everybody out. So I would like to again ask that you expand your group to include ZOA and APAC and others that have been recommended here today. I reiterate the request that the school district issue an apology, and I ask that you adopt the definition of anti-Semitism that comes from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have our last in-person speaker is Ruth Jenkins. Sorry, Ruth, yes.
Wow. Ruth Jenkins, Wynwood. I'd like to congratulate the board on joining the 85% of the districts in Pennsylvania that have full-time kindergarten. I hope that we'll continue being part of that larger group. I also want you to consider the school time and the impact it will have on the Voc Technical School children. And that it really is an important part of our system now, that we are paying attention not just to the highly academic students, but giving an opportunity to those students that are voctechnically talented. The other thing is the time change. I'm concerned, I know that a lot of people are concerned about the sleep deprivation of high school students, and I know that all the studies show that. What the studies don't show is that it doesn't matter, that they still are going to be sleep deprived, because now they're going to go to sleep a little bit later, and they're going to get up a little bit later, and it's going to be the same number of hours. They're already pretty well educated. They're moving on, hopefully, to college or vocational or to jobs. Our little children are the ones that need a good start. And they're the ones that should not be going to school at the time that they are not functioning well or coming home in the dark. The other thing that I wanted to mention was the rebate. And I think that one of the things that Commissioner Bernheim needs to work on is affordable housing in this community. And then we can have a better opportunity, a better variety of people, and pay attention more to the equity, diversity opportunities here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Walter Oakwell. Save Oakwell.
So, Mr. Roos, can you please read any public comments that were submitted via the chat feature?
There are 8 comments that were submitted. Adrian Seltzer, Wynwood, please remember tomorrow is the election day. Please vote. School board candidates are on the ballot.
Vote against the Democrats.
Could you please not interrupt? Ma'am, do you really want us to call recess to this meeting? Or if, because with this additional, sir, I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but please, if you can't be civil.
Excuse me, sir. We have civility rules. You had your opportunity to speak. Ma'am, you had your opportunity to speak as well. Please, we ask our children to be civil. We need to be respectful, and we need to model for our children respectful and civil conversation. Screaming out in a meeting is not that.
Jennifer Hoffman, Marion Station. My husband and I are beyond concerned that it is 1 month later. We are actually in a worse position tonight at this meeting. Last month, we begged you to consider the safety of the staff and students on the kill list that the 3 students at BCMS made, and you ignored us. You did not expel these students. You did not even perform full psychological evaluations on these students before letting them back into our buildings. Since that meeting, we now seem to receive weekly emails with reports that similar incidents are occurring. Our sense is that Acting Superintendent Schaefer will make the same accommodation for these students and prioritize them over the true victims on these lists. The staff and the students whose lives may truly be in danger. I ask this board, what does it take to qualify as a threat in this district? Placing our community members on a murder list enough, in my opinion, for zero tolerance policy moving forward. Catherine Kurtz, Narberth. I urge you to withdraw plans to build anything at Oakwell. Save this sensitive, valuable site. Joseph Aberson, Bala-Cynwyd. There ought to be a way to be progressive and equitable without being anti-Semitic. However, until the far left figure out how, I think we should focus more on preventing anti-Semitism than wasting money on DEI ideology. Wilson Chong, Bala-Cynwyd. I would be more than happy to pay more taxes for a paid fire department. You spend money, so much money on things like DEI that have 65-point achievement gap, that at least we would be spending money on someone that could save someone's house. This school board is awful. Jamie Stanton. Please comply with the requests outlined by concerned parents from BCMS at the last board meeting and available in a petition to provide additional counselors, update the code of conduct with clear consequences, provide a threat assessment, update school cameras, and provide school safety as an agenda board meeting monthly with updates. Petition found here, https://chang.it/ capital B, capital L, 9, capital Q, 4, small p, small s, small m, small n. We have almost 200 signatures. Thank you. Diane Rogovich, Marion Station. Please bring back the common sense and discipline. Restorative practices have clearly proven to be unsuccessful in dealing with the many behavioral issues we are seeing in schools. Stronger policies are needed. We need leaders who are not afraid to bring back order and discipline back to our schools. Lisa Maslow, Bala-Cynwyd. I am extremely concerned about the lack of response from the board and administration regarding the recent threats made by students at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School and Black Rock Middle School. In addition, the seemingly weekly fights that are disrupting the education of all students. Why isn't more being done? There needs to be stronger consequences for these offenders. There also needs to be better climate control in the buildings. What is Shawana James Cole's role in all of this? Why hasn't she been more active in these issues? What are you going to do to ensure the safety of all of our students? I am also appalled at the anti-Semitic acts in the school district as of late. What is being done to address this? All should feel safe and welcome, and this is not the case. Do better, Lmsd. That concludes the comments in the chat.
Thank you, Mr. Roos.
I think I can address a few of those final comments. In terms of the agenda this evening, there is some information that we can share with the board regarding steps we've taken with Ballackinwood Middle School, as well as Black Rock Middle School. So we will do that, and then we can talk about that publicly at the next meeting. The other items, as I said earlier, the intent of the interruption was to acknowledge that there was concern in the room and that we had been working on the concern that had been brought to our attention. And as I said, we are working to partner with outside organizations to help support and inform our work moving forward, and we will continue to do that. As far as the role of Ms. James Goals, she is responsible across the district and has a presence in every building in this school district, and has in her short period of time here has built relationships with our faculty, with our administration, and directly with students, and she is involved in the matters that were addressed in the comments this evening, both at a student level and at a staff level and an administration level. So there is direct involvement by Ms. James Coles in these matters, and her bandwidth is being stretched because we have a desire to make sure that we are her presence is felt in every building. So we do hope to build on that work and grow the work so that we all have better understandings about some of the concerns raised tonight. And we will continue that work with and together with Ms. James Coles and our community partners.
And I would just like to respond to a comment that was made about the properties that comprise the Oakwell, the 1835, and also the Acorn Cottages. They were being actively offered. They were offered to sale to the Lower Merion School District, and they were offered to sale to Villanova University. They were offered to sale to both of them. They were in fact under agreements of sale to both of them at some point, or excuse me, they were negotiated tentative agreements of sale for both of them. So they were being actively marketed to certain buyers.
Thank you, Mr. Roos, for the clarification. Now we're going to move on to with approving the agenda. I wanted to ask if there were any comments on the agenda, if anyone wanted to pull anything. I am going to pull pull something from the consent agenda. I'm going to pull the budget piece from the consent agenda, but if there are any questions on any items, I believe, Ms. Kalish, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Klein. I wanted to discuss the calendar that we're set to approve for the 24-25 school year. I had two questions regarding that. First is about the selection date of spring break from April 21st to 25th. And I'm looking at the calendar, and it says here that Passover begins the evening of April 12th, which is a Saturday, I believe, and it runs through the 20th. And then Easter is April 20th. Now, spring break usually runs over Passover week, especially when Passover and Easter are so close. And I'm really curious as to why the 21st to the 25th was selected and not that previous week.
Are you, this is Denise Lavera. This is the 24, 25, correct? It's 2 years out. Is that what you were looking at, those dates?
Yes.
Okay, then was probably my error. I thought I will check that and would put it back on again next month if there's an error. That would be my mistake.
Yeah, I'm looking, so we're looking at
2025 would be the April of 2025 when Passover and Easter are.
April 2025, I'm looking, it says April 12th to 20th. And Easter is April 20th of 2025.
So it's wrong. Yeah, I will fix that. I will come back next month. Thank you, Ms. Kalish.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. LaPera. I did have one other question that I wanted to bring up about the calendar while we're speaking about it. And it had a note that said elementary half-days were not listed on the calendar. And I just wanted to bring that up because I know that a lot of those elementary half days are really disruptive for families. That we see a lot of half days, especially surrounding parent-teacher conferences or just teacher conferences in general. And I think having those in advance of voting on them would be helpful. And that I'm not sure if the administration has considered condensing some of those conference times into perhaps being full days off or to offering different timings, but just day after day of shortened days at the elementary level is really, really complicating for families.
Yeah, so the calendars are approved a couple years ahead of time, and so that's why you don't see the elementary conference days on there. Running a full day of conferences takes one day away from our calendar. So when you think of like 180 days of school, we have to actually have students in session. The hours count because we count them as activity days, but full day would have an impact on the calendar. That's why we run half-day sessions for it. And we'll pull and take a look before Ms. LaPera puts the next calendar on, but we're pretty packed as far as our conferences are concerned. At the elementary level, we actually have added in middle school conferences because we did not have enough slots the last couple of years. And so if you watch the calendar the last 2 years, we put in additional time for middle school conferences as well, so we could give parents the opportunity that they're asking for to attend conferences. We definitely have the slots filled at the elementary level, for sure. And I do recognize, I know it's a balance of the half days, which are hard. When I was a parent, I remember having those half days, but also really wanting to make sure that our parents have the ability to talk to their teachers as they wish in both the fall and the spring. So that is something that's a balance for sure.
I understand, but we're looking at I can't remember if it's usually 2 or 3 half days in the calendar. I know I'm a little more sensitive about it, honestly, because my child was in half-day kindergarten and she was in the afternoon. And so any days that there were half days that she had no school at all that day, I realized that with the delightful addition of full-day kindergarten, that at least will be one issue that we won't have to engage with at that point. But I would urge us maybe to try and, we've had so much creative thinking on all these challenging issues, and this is just a really practical one. If we could even have more of our time be evening conferences that could be available over Zoom or some alternative solution that we could consider, I think that our elementary families would really appreciate that effort.
Sure, we can absolutely investigate and talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
So, Ms. LaPera, that will come off of the agenda. The calendar comes off of tonight's agenda then, so correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Shrek?
One of the financial items, I have a conflict of interest. The Palo Alto item, my husband works for them, so I can't vote on that.
Great, we will pull that one off as well then, correct?
We don't need to pull it off. Just note for the record that Board Member Shurak is abstaining from that vote on the consent agenda. And then whatever vote she makes will be for the rest of the items.
Okay, thank you.
And that you'll need to file the form with Ms. LaPera.
Okay, so I guess I'd like to start with the budget, since that we're going to pull that out from consent. Do I have a motion?
Before you make that motion, I believe Mr. Orlando has a correction to make to the budget form.
There is a correction, as the individual noted. There is the box should be yes, saying, did you raise taxes, property taxes in fiscal year 23-24 compared to 22-23? That box should be yes. It is incorrect on the form, so I'll note that correction, say yes, and we'll post that correctly.
And that correction is now part of the action item.
Thank you much. Thank you, Mr. Orlando, and thank you to the gentleman who pointed out the incorrect information. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the proposed budget for 23-24?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Abstain.
Motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda the rest of tonight's agenda via consent?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. So now do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion passes. Mr. Roos, can you please give a report on the Sunshine Act?
Yeah, can you scroll up to the Sunshine Act? I'm so sorry, thank you. That's okay. Yes, the board did meet in executive session tonight regarding a matter in litigation, the school district's litigation with the Foundation for Islamic Studies regarding the agreement, the breach of agreement of sale for the Black Rock Middle School property. The district also, you need to keep going?
I did.
Oh, there you go. There were also executive sessions on May 8th and tonight, May 15th, regarding real estate matters and regarding, that was it, right? Personnel. I think there's personnel too, also personnel. Is there personnel on May 8th? Yeah. And also tonight regarding personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Roos. We are moving into our summer schedule as the school year winds down. Our next full board meeting will be on Tuesday, June 20th. It's a regular business board meeting. There's no education committee meeting generally scheduled in June, July, or August. It is a Tuesday evening as Monday, the third Monday of the month, is Juneteenth. Upcoming committee meetings. On May 31st, as mentioned earlier, we will have a Finance Committee meeting that is replacing the previously scheduled Communications Committee meeting. That'll be at 7 p.m. via Zoom. On June 14th is the final Equity and Anti-Racism Committee meeting for this school year. It will also be via Zoom at 7 p.m. And the one committee that continues to meet over the summer is the Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting, and that is will be on Thursday, June 15th at 8:30 a.m. here in the boardroom. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.